I can get it. I never can get the.
Boys, you're gonna miss it.
Get it. We'll get it. We'll get it. Hey, over there. Throw that over. That can, green, hand thing. I gotta get another one of those. Hey,
We have to leave these out.
whatever.
Stuff.
But
I'll come up tonight.
Hey, Mark, just want to check, are Trish Kerr and Heidi Nightingale there? I just can't see them.
Thank you.
Yeah, Amanda, Trish and Heidi are both here and the chairman is now here. So it's 5:33. I guess we can get going. Start off with roll call. Lane Daly is here. Andy is here. Mike Didio, you're on the computer. Thank you. Trish Kerr, Heidi Nightingale, Chris Petras. So the full committee is here. Minutes to approve for January 12, 2022. Got a motion? Second? All in favor?
Hi.
We have no appointments, so we're going to get right into a presentation from the Sheriff, Brian Shank, and I think you got a partner too.
Yes, Second Lieutenant Fred Cornelius.
Yes. So go ahead, gentlemen, you have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. We appreciate the opportunity to address the legislature. Again, I think that you're all aware that we've been working to try to implement a body worn camera program at the sheriff's office, and we approached the legislature last year looking for some funding to try to accomplish that. We were asked to come back and give a presentation that we gave last year to the sitting legislators then, for all of you that are here that may not have been here last year. So we're happy to do that. Detective Lieutenant Fred Cornelius is with me. He's been working on a grant proposal that we did secure. We did secure some funding to move forward if the legislature decides to give us the additional funding to move forward. And he put together a PowerPoint presentation. It's pretty much the same presentation that we gave last year. So I'm going to turn it over to him and let him get the highlights. There you go.
So, well, we're going to talk a little bit about body worn cameras. We looked at a lot of different things. We're looking specifically at the Axon third generation body worn camera. It's really the standard for body worn cameras for law enforcement. It is ruggedized, encrypted video. One of the nice features with this system is some people who are police officers, but not really police officers anymore, like police administrators, are oftentimes back at the office and you hear the radio go off and you hear, officer needs assistance, or you can't get a hold of an officer, or, they're not answering the radio or whatever. This system has a component where from your desk, you can, in those situations, just click the camera on and see exactly what's happening in real time. So if somebody can't get to their radio, if somebody is struggling or something like that, we would have a lot more information available to us and available to dispatch when those kind of things happen. Now, that's a thing that would be limited to a higher level of administration to be able to access. You want people just chiming in and looking at people's cameras, but that's one of the things that's available to us. We've seen some demonstrations with these cameras, 4 microphones. The audio is pretty clear. Everybody's seen these videos on YouTube or whatever, and it's bouncing around and it's, dark. And these have, just like any kind of technology, the audio and the video has progressed a lot in the time that they've been working on these cameras. And there's some image stabilization, so they're not as bouncy. And, you get what you get. You got a camera attached to a person, so it is what it is. But we can get the next. So what do we need cameras for? Why is it important for the Cayuga County Sheriff's Office, 36, or 35 police officers to have cameras on their bodies all the time? One of the things is to assist in prosecutions, to assist in having the best evidence available when somebody is being prosecuted. You get to see exactly what happened. There isn't a question about what did somebody say, were they read their rights, did this. None of that's a question. It's the absolute best evidence that you have to be able to give to the prosecutor to be able to come up with a positive outcome. And with having that evidence, it can't help but reduce our civil liability. We're going to be able to say that didn't happen. You can sue all you want. We can prove that what you're saying is not true. So it gives us that ability. Encouraging policy compliance. Everybody has people, that may not like to do everything exactly the way that they're supposed to, or that may, we got a bunch of policies. I'm sure that there's some that people don't want to follow, but at least if the camera's on, we're going to be able to go back and look if it comes down to that and be able to tell whether you're doing what you're supposed to or not. So it gives us that opportunity. Better protect the citizens, better protect the officers. It's always going to protect everybody better. One of the things that's been shown over and over again is that everybody behaves better if the camera's on. Everybody behaves better. The public, when you say, just so you know, camera's on, they behave better. Officers maybe use a little nicer language, whatever, something like that. But everybody behaves better with the camera on. Gives us transparency of operations, and one of the important things, and I know it's important to the sheriff, we've talked about a lot of times, is being responsive to the community and what the community wants from us. And one of the things that the community said in our first survey, top of the list, body-worn cameras. So we want to be able to be responsive to the community.
Next slide, Matt.
So one of the things, now they provided some information for us on kind of averages throughout the country as body-worn camera programs have been implemented. Now, granted, these are a lot of times in bigger cities, and I don't expect you to be able to read that, Legislator Petrus, even though you're.
I was scared why everyone was looking at me.
Is this new? You're like, I was looking around the room. I was just looking at the small print.
It's not you. So one of the things is, money saved from litigation costs. Now, granted, we don't have a lot of litigation. I think that the sheriff's office does a pretty good job, but all it takes is one big lawsuit that we have trouble defending, and we lose our shirt. And we want to take every opportunity and use every piece of technology available to us to be able to avoid that circumstance. And they talk about that there's a 41% reduction in personnel complaints or complaints about police service because, like I said, everybody just behaves better when the camera's on, and you don't have the opportunity to lie. So if you were of that mindset, well, I'm just going to say that this police officer did this or they did that. Camera's on, you can't do that. So those complaints, and especially the frivolous complaints, there's a reduction in there. So what are the drawbacks? The drawbacks are simple. You know, they're not free. That's reality. There's nothing free. The initial costs of the counties are not inconsequential. The addition of this technology requires the addition of a civilian clerk to be able to manage the data. There's just no way to do it otherwise. We try and make good use of the resources that we have at the sheriff's office, but we're stretched thin like everybody's stretched thin, and adding an additional function like this just would be too much without a person.
Next slide.
One of the things that the clerk would be responsible for, and just kind of why a clerk, you know, why do we want a clerk? Clerks cost less money than police officers, and this is a clerk function. It's a clerk function. So, you know, there's always sometimes the temptation maybe to be like, maybe we can get another police officer. We have him do this a little bit, do that a little bit, but that's not the way we operate. We want to be transparent. We want to tell you exactly what we need and not anything more. And this would be the most cost-effective way would be with a civilian clerk. Redactions of videos. There's a software component to this program, to the whole body-worn camera program, that allows for us to go in and redact certain things, whether it be for personal privacy situations. You know, sometimes we go into people's houses, they may not be fully clothed, or, you know, anything like that. There might be license plates or computer screens or like combination locks or something that we access that we wouldn't want other people to see. This gives us the ability to redact those things and do it in kind of a thoughtful way, in a way that allows for the computer to do some of the work. It'll follow the person's face, or it'll follow the pixels that you identify. So that's a big thing. Personal privacy is a huge concern. We want to make sure that we're paying attention to that, and we don't want to release anything to anyone that we shouldn't.
Next slide.
So looking at the clerk position, I mean, you guys have all of this information available to you. You know what it costs what it costs with Fringe, but in order to put the grant together, we needed to be able to say, you know, this is how much we're going to use of that money for personnel or different things. So the way that it all comes out is top step of a clerk position is about $45,500 plus Fringe. You're looking at $70,000 a year, and that's at a top step. And like I say, you know, if we could do it for less, we would, but it's just not feasible.
Next slide.
The software that's included in this package is called evidence.com. Gives us a lot of functionality that you don't get with a lot of other companies. It's all cloud-based storage. It's all encrypted. It's all able to be tagged to let us know when it's time to get rid of it. That's the other thing that the clerk would be responsible for is the retention and destruction of the video files, because you don't want to hold something longer than you're required to hold it. We want to be able to provide the prosecution with what they need. And at the point in time where it's not anything that's going to be prosecuted, there's a certain retention schedule that we have to hold things for, and then we get rid of them. So the clerk would tag those things in the program, and then it would tell her, okay, it's time to review this and potentially get rid of it. Also, it gives us a mechanism to be able to transfer things to the district attorney's office. And the upside is the New York State Police are using this program. The Auburn Police are implementing a program using this software. It would be a nightmare to have 3 different programs to send data and videos and everything down to the district attorney's office. It would be crazy to even consider that. So using one system in the whole county just makes sense.
Can I add to that, Fred?
Yeah.
So with evidence.com too, the nice thing is that we'll be able to give the district attorney's office the ability to download the information themselves. We won't have to download that and then send it to the district attorney's office. They'll go into the system and grab what they need out of there. So that will save certainly a lot of time. We won't have to download CDs with, endless amounts of data on there, transfer that. It's just a link they can go in and grab it. And the other benefit too with evidence.com is all of this data will be stored in the cloud in another location. So our IT department would not have to, develop more server capacity or have staffing available to maintain all of this data. That's part of this program and part of this cost. So we don't have to look for more IT support to manage this. Thank you.
Even though, when it comes right down to it, look what kind of work the IT department's capable of doing. This place is like like the Taj Mahal in here. The system itself, the proposal from Axon, this is the layout of the cost from Axon, which includes 33 cameras, unlimited storage, evidence.com, the redaction software, individual charger stations because deputies start their shift at their house, they end their shift at their house. So they would need to have the ability to keep their equipment charged and everything. So we need one of each. Some extra cameras, everything that we need. That's the layout of the cost that's directly to Exxon.
Next slide.
And so where do we get the money from? We did get awarded the small, rural, and tribal grant that was applied for, which totals $66,000. It's $3,000 a camera, I think.
What is the camera life?
$2,000 a camera.
What is the camera life?
Oh, so that's, so the question was, what's the life of the camera? The program is designed to replace a certain number of cameras or to continue a replacement schedule of cameras. So I believe in year 3 or year 4, I'm not sure, but one of those years, all the cameras are replaced with the newest technology. And then we just, the assumption is that then we're going to re-up our contract with them, but there is a replacement built in. So the camera shouldn't ever become obsolete. So $66,000 in the grant, the rest has to be borne by the county. And that's where you come in and the check writers. But go ahead.
Next slide.
First year. So this is just some data, and you guys have access to this presentation.
We will make sure that you get it. We'll forward that on.
So just a couple of things to highlight. Places like Mesa PD in Arizona reduced citizen complaints by 40%, reduced use of force by 75%. Fort Collins reduced use of force complaints by 100%. I don't know how many they had before, but that's pretty impressive. Reduced court overtime by 24%. One of the things that is kind of an unknown here is the same as what we ran into when we started videotaping or recording interviews and suspect interviews. What's going to happen? Are we going to be in court all the time? Or one of the things that happens is when you give the district attorney the best evidence that you can give them, they have all the tools they need to be able to resolve the case. So you know, it can go one way or the other. Either they've got such a great case that they don't have to plead it out and they don't have to make an offer and maybe we end up in court on those cases. Or they've got such a good case that the person says, okay, just please, 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 you know, let me make the best deal I can. But either way, there's a reduction in all of the, you know, the bad things, use of force, civil liability, complaints.
Next slide.
Will this likely be required at some point? I heard somebody said that.
There is a push for that, and I have a feeling that someday down the road, it will be mandatory that all agencies have body cameras, but we certainly want to implement them for the benefits that we see.
So the state police across the state have started their implementation. They kind of went zone by zone, and our troop has started to implement, or they might have all cameras out now. But you know, that's the biggest police agent, well, other than New York City, which was mandated by a court order to put body cameras out. Those are the two biggest police agencies in the state that have them. I don't think it's a huge leap that the legislature say, okay, we're going to make everybody else do it, but it hasn't happened yet.
So at the beginning, when you said you can click into them, you're not turning them on or off, you're just clicking in from another remote area?
So they would, if the deputy is following the procedure, they would already have the camera on and recording because they're interacting assumably with somebody, but we can access that stream remotely.
The camera has to be turned on and off every time the deputy has an interaction, but it almost becomes muscle memory from what I'm told by agencies that already have them. When they get out of the car, they're just automatically clicking them on. You just get used to that. So they're on when the deputy turns them on. But as far as remotely using them, we would set up a policy that obviously if a deputy wasn't answering the radio or there was a major incident where maybe we want to be viewing what's going on in real time, we would do that, but it wouldn't be used as a tool to keep an eye on our people. That's not what we're looking to implement them for.
So they're not on when they're just driving the car?
No, they don't turn them on and off.
No, one of the circumstances where oftentimes, you know, we would be sitting somewhere and watching a body camera, and we did it just recently with another agency, is during the execution of search warrants. You know, you see that on TV too. You know, the cameras are all on and everybody's going through. We would have the ability to do that. So we're sitting back at a command post and can see in real time if there's any problems. Mr. Petrus?
I'm good.
Yes, sir.
That's
Questionable, but for now.
I did see that, you know, we are obviously, the county was awarded a grant, and I believe there's an expiration date on that grant. Is that correct?
So they haven't, there is a waiting list. If we were to back out, there's people that are ready to take advantage of that. I was told that we had about 2 months from the time that they announced the awards, and that was about a month ago.
So we got kind of like.
So we're a little under the gun to be able to accept the money. They're going to be giving, the next thing that we have to do with regard to the grant is we have to provide them our draft policy, and which is a policy that we've tweaked very little from other policies that are approved elsewhere. So I don't expect that'll be a problem, but that's the next step. And then after they approve the policy, then they release the award money.
Okay, so I guess the next magic question is, how much from us? And I say us, the list.
Well, is it first year 13 if we got 66?
No, I had to do a budget, and that money has to go out over the life of the grant.
Okay.
So it works out to we're spending, you know, $22,000 per year for.
But this first year, what are we gonna need this first year?
So the first year was at 72,000.
That's what I thought. Oh, I said 79 minus 66.
Minus 22,000. Was it over a
Yeah,
3-year period or 5?
We originally thought it was going to be a 5-year period. The grant money.
Oh, I see.
Is
It's
3
gotcha.
years.
Yeah, so I think.
And then we get the rest of the,
Yeah,
we
gotcha.
have to bear the rest of the cost.
That'd be 22,000 deducted from those costs for the first 3 years.
I got you. So it's not the full 66. I got you.
Plus the employee.
Right, yeah, it's over that period of time. And to Mr. Dennison's point, that money doesn't include the cost of.
But it's a lot better than paying an officer, as you pointed out.
If you were to put a request in for ARPA funds, I would assume that's one of the proposals that you guys have. It would be a total amount, though. You're not gonna be looking at getting funded for 1 year, right? You're gonna be putting in
It would really be up to the legislature, up to you how you would want us to do that. I would be all for trying to fund the full cost of the cameras with the ARPA funding if we could do that for the 5-year period. I'm not sure how that would work with the grant. We would have to work.
Oh, doesn't the ARPA has to be spent, doesn't it?
by 26.
Oh, 26. So that'll give us, all right.
I just didn't know if you had a proposal in with a dollar amount at this point in time.
I did put that in as one of our ARPA proposals, the body worn camera system.
For a dollar.
For the whole thing, yes.
Yes, okay, that's what I thought.
And if I could just add relative to the presentation, one of the biggest reasons that I want to implement them, again, to protect our people and to protect the citizens we serve, but everybody out there today has a video recorder in their pocket. Everybody has a cell phone. Our people, when they're getting out of their car dealing with incidents, they don't have the opportunity or the ability to pull their cell phone out and start recording the incident. So individuals are recording what they want to record and what they may want to provide. So technology's changed. Everybody has this recording device in their pocket with their phone. They can just provide what little bit they want to provide. If there's a criminal prosecution or some type of incident where maybe we're taken to task for something that maybe we did right, maybe we did wrong. I'm concerned for our people that we don't have the ability to provide a full accounting of what happened when somebody's coming forward with video. Knock on wood, we're lucky. Our people are doing a great job out there, in my opinion, and we're not facing a lot of litigation when it comes to our road patrol division and incidents that we handle every day. That's not to say that, we're not one call away from that call that we're going to say we wish we had, an accounting and a video of that incident. So I really think this is good for our people. I think it's good for the citizens we serve. And I think it's good for decreasing the liability that we have, as a sheriff's office and as Cayuga County out there serving the citizens. So I'm not sure if there's any other questions. We're happy to keep answering them.
I had a question, and thank you for making that point, because I was going to make that point that everybody does have a cell phone. So it is good to have our full picture that we're capturing, our side of the story. But in terms of that civilian clerk, could that be linked to Discovery? And I was wondering, at one point last year, there was some funding that came through for Discovery. I think that the DA's office had kind of allocated according to their own plan. I don't know where that funding stands or if it's going to be coming through again this year, but I was wondering if there is funding for Discovery, could the civilian clerk potentially be part of that package?
I can answer that. So the funding came from the Manhattan District Attorney's Office through their forfeiture funding. I have received confirmation that they will not be giving us that money or any DA's office that money throughout the state this year. So their forfeiture fund is depleted. My understanding is there's no funding in the budget for Discovery purposes with the state. So we don't plan on receiving anything.
At one point, John did think it was going to be recurring, but it ends up not being.
We thought it was. That was Cy Vance was the former district attorney of Manhattan district attorney's office. He's no longer there. And my understanding is that their forfeiture fund is depleted, so they don't have anything to provide to the other district attorney's offices.
I'm just curious if there's any advocacy happening for the state to help fund Discovery.
Or Ledge One thing about that?
There is.
I didn't see that. Yeah. Is it? Okay.
I can only speak for the district attorney. I know the District Attorneys Association is advocating for funding. So, and they've been actively advocating for funding.
And the discovery piece would be an important part of this clerk's job, providing that information, that discoverable material. We have to provide all of it in any criminal prosecution or any criminal case.
We try to get the entire case, or as close to the entire case as we can, from the arrest to the clerk to the DA's office in 3 days. And that's a short turnaround time when you're talking about, criminal cases and that. But, this is what we're faced with right now. So we do the best we can, and we do our right, but we could always use some help.
Or are those costs over the 5 years guaranteed? Because you said every 3 years or so, the new cameras come out.
Yeah, that's a cost. The contract cost is built into the contract.
You spoke with anybody, any other departments that give you an idea of, if they're rolling out new technology every 3 years, I got to imagine the expense gets more and more 5, 7, 10 years down the road. Is anybody giving you an idea of that?
I think the reality of it is we can't stand here and say what it will look like in year 6. But I think the reality of it is that we all know that technology is always getting more and more expensive. So I would anticipate that it would. I can't imagine that they would be the same cost. I certainly would hope that they would be, but as the technology changes and inflation and everything we're dealing with, I've got to imagine that, the cost of those will increase as well. I will add that we have talked with John Carr as late as today about the potential to implement this program and look at other ways to be more cost conscious here. And he's actually going to reach out to another larger agency if we're able to move forward with this. To see if we could potentially piggyback off of their contract and maybe purchase them a little bit cheaper. We don't know the answer to that, but we're also exploring, other avenues to lower those costs that we have proposed to purchase those directly too. So I'm not sure if that may be an option, but to answer your question, Andy, I don't know, what that's going to look like in year 6, but I understand the reality that it's likely that those costs are going to be higher when we get to that point.
But the other thing that you look at, hardware costs are increasing a lot. But one of the things that has come down is the ability to have offsite storage. Offsite storage costs a lot less than having hard drives and RAID drives and all of these things that our staff here at the county would have to maintain. And I would expect that technology will increase just like the hardware technology is going to increase. So I think there'll be some give and take over the years.
Any other questions for the sheriff or the lieutenant? Jim?
Yes, sir. So, and this may not actually be for them, it may be for Lynn. If there wasn't a grant and there wasn't ARPA money, what would be the % increase to the budget? And can we find out what that number would be? Because then I can, in my head, look at, for me, 4 years, 5 years down, it's, what's it gonna look like when we go to budget time because this is gonna be in perpetuity, it's gonna go on forever. And I'm not saying, I'm just trying to think in my head how that would affect the budget down the road, with whether it would, where it drives that. And I think we should be asking that question for a lot of the ARPA requests, if they're going to be things that are funded through ARPA, but then have to continue. If they're one-time purchase thing, that's different. But if it's something like this, we'd want to know what that is.
I'll make it.
Not that this not go, but I'm just saying we ought to have knowledge in our heads as to.
I'll make it a point to, Jim, I'll make it a point to stop into Liz's office, or Lynn's office,
Yeah.
and speak with her about it.
You could do the math on it.
Or I'm sure she can. And
we're going to
answer that question.
Yeah, we're going to add one person. We're going to get this equipment, and the contract has to be renewed I'm throwing this out, every 5 years. And so we should be looking at what that impact is to the budget for the future.
You think there'd be a new grant every time too, or is this like a one-time?
There's been a number of grants that have come out from different DOJ entities. The one that we applied for was for small rural or tribal agencies. We were well suited for that particular grant. I don't know that agencies are getting reoccurring funding through those sources though.
certainly if that opportunity presented itself, we would certainly explore that like we do with everything.
Yeah.
Appreciate your consideration, giving us the opportunity. And we'll make sure that you get the presentation, and if you have any additional questions after the meeting, certainly reach out and we'll get you the information.
Thank you, gentlemen, very much.
Thank you. If I could just say something real quick.
Yes, sir.
So I didn't want to step on the sheriff or the lieutenant's toes, but I just wanted to say, so I have some experience with these cameras myself. When they first came out, I mean, I hated it. And hate is like the Disney Channel version of the way I felt about it. But I'm telling you, over the past few years, it's really proven to protect the community and protect the officers. So I support this fully, and I really think we ought to get this done. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, sir.
Why do you hate the Disney Channel? Hey, Mark, if I could.
Yes, ma'am.
I know that we're talking about ARPA, but this is essentially the evolution of our sheriff's department, and we need to stop thinking about this in terms of ARPA, and we need to make this happen. And I was part of the Reinvention Collaborative with Elaine in the sheriff's office. And, it is necessary. Our residents are asking for it. I was actually surprised to learn that we didn't have anything like this, prior to being part of the collaborative, that the city police didn't have it. But it's part of the evolution, and we just have to learn to and, make decisions with other parts of the county to kind of supplement what's going on here. So
Thank you,
support
ma'am.
it fully.
Any other comments for the sheriff and on the camera presentation?
Good job.
Okay, moving right along, Miss Denise Spingler from 911, you're up.
Good evening. Just a couple of things to highlight on my report. We talked a little bit about the dispatch test that was up and coming. We had 57 candidates sign up and only 35 show up. So the numbers are just going down. I can recall when I started, we had probably 100 and maybe 150 people taking the test. And, this is 35 showing up. So then you have to take into account how many pass the test. And then you take into account how many pass the typing test. And then we end up with probably a list of 15 if we're lucky. So we're facing some tough times with this. In regards to the database analyst, I'm going to try to maybe quarterly give a breakdown of the workload that's going through that position, just to highlight the importance of the position and just to keep you guys updated on, what's happening. So if there's ever questions on that, just, feel free to ask. Regards to Auburn City Ambulance Dispatching, we're still working through some trials with that. It's definitely been a lot more than what we anticipated, a lot more change. So you've got 3 different agencies involved in the change, and we've had some trials, but we're getting through them. They're doing about between 700 and 800 calls a month. So we're looking at over 8,000 calls annually. That's a lot. That's a big workload for a small center like us. And the last thing I'll highlight is in regards to grants, both the SEEK and the new PSAP grants have been submitted. Sounds like the SEEK grant might be a little more than what we anticipated because they're going to double up the years on that. So once I have more information on those, I will definitely distribute it. I do have 2 resolutions tonight. The first one, and I don't have the agenda in front of me to know which one's
Authorization to sign a contract with.
That's plan. Okay, so JP1 is the Planet Schedule. This is a scheduling software that we're going to implement. Right now, we do everything on paper. We're kind of old school. So we're going to move forward with Planet Scheduling. This will allow staff to see the schedule when they're not at work. There'll be an app on their phones that they can access it, request time off, put other requests in there. And this will actually be budgeted in the IT budget. Thanks, Tom. Because it's a software line. So are there any questions on that?
Want to do that now?
Yeah, we can, if that's all right.
I'll move it for questions.
I'll second it.
We have a first and a second. Can we get any discussion on that JP1? No discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried, thank you. JP2.
JP2 is authorization to fill a supervising emergency services dispatcher position. I think many of you were on some email threads, really just to kind of capture this. We've been short a supervisor for probably 3.5, 4 years. It's not a good position for us to be in. We should have a supervisor on every shift. And this is our overnight shift that doesn't have a supervisor. Generally, newer people go to the midnight shift because it's all based on staff seniority. So I feel like I'm failing my team, to be honest with you, because they really need to have a supervisor on midnights. But the biggest issue we contend with is that the compression between the dispatch salaries and the supervisor salaries is so tight that there's not a lot of benefit to taking that promotion. It's about $1,100 to become a supervisor, and that at the end of the day is really not a whole lot. But I do have 2 people who are actually interested in that position potentially. So I think we're at a point where we're going to be able to fill it. So I would like to promote somebody and then backfill that dispatch position. There is funding in the budget currently to offset the costs. We have 2 vacancies right now for dispatch positions that we'll have for at least 6 months this year. The promotion is also going to cause a vacancy. So there'll be savings in that respect as well. Any questions on that?
Let's
Move it.
Yeah, let's,
Yeah, I want to do it again.
yeah, let's go ahead and, can I get a,
Moved.
I have a motion,
Second.
can I get a second? Chris, thank you. Discussion? Go ahead, Andy.
What, so if this has been vacant for 3 or 4 years, you also have 2 dispatch that are vacant right now?
I do. Yeah, we do.
I guess my question is, what's more important at the moment? I mean, or are we trying to fill the dispatch positions also?
We're going to fill the dispatch positions. We just don't have an active list. As soon as we get the list from this new test, we're going to fill those positions.
So does a supervisor step into that, fill in for?
So that's the other problem that we contend with in the center is our supervisors are working supervisors because we just are not, and I hate to say never, but we're never going to get to a point where we have enough staff that our supervisors can actually do supervisory work. They answer phone calls just like the dispatchers do. They obviously have other duties and they are responsible for the personnel in the center when they're working, but they're always working. They're always answering phones, dispatching, helping out whenever somebody's on break. Because inevitably, if you have, 4 on, somebody's got to cover a position when somebody goes on break, or somebody calls in sick and you're running short. So they're working the floor. So the supervisory position is from an operational perspective important because there's a lot of liability in the center. So you have to have somebody who can oversee that and manage that when there's problems.
Any other questions on JP2?
I just wanted to, I'm the one that sent the email thread to everybody, just trying to make sense of all of this. So the supervisor job you're going to fill, you had the position, but you didn't have funding for it.
Correct. That's correct.
The only reason you're going to not need to take additional, because you're putting a new position in your budget that didn't exist. The only reason you're not having to take money out of contingency or somewhere else to make your salary line right is because right now, 2 current dispatcher positions that are vacant.
Correct.
And they're going to stay budgeted and vacant until mid-year.
Yep.
And now you're going to have permission to fill an additional dispatcher, which is what you made the case you needed when you presented the budget. So it kind of will take care of, you'll get the supervisor and you're going to add 1 additional dispatcher if we pass this resolution.
Correct.
So you likely won't have to come back to us in June like we talked about, create a new dispatcher and get money out of contingency to do it.
Potentially. See, the problem is that we're 24/7.
Yep.
And there are 4 and 2.
Yep.
So when you look at workloads, if you add 1 person, you're putting them on 1 shift. So then that C line shift. So say, for example, you're putting them 7:30 to 3:30. Then at 3:30 to 11:30, you still have a gap because you're not balancing out your staff members. So it's going to be a game of, it's going to be a balancing act. So we're going to have to see where we.
Right. I mean, but this will give you the additional.
It will definitely help
that
us.
You did
100%.
not have and
Correct.
budgeted for in the tentative.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah. We asked for 2 new ones in the budget
And
they
you
were
got
both-
none?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And this will give you the additional
give us one of them.
and make it affordable within your 2022 budget.
Correct.
Mr. Peters?
Would it be fair to say that this is not a create and fill? It's just the filling of an unfilled position?
Correct.
It does exist in the budget at this point?
Well, she didn't have to create
wasn't-
it, but it wasn't
Right.
funded.
Right. We
Fair
didn't have
enough.
funded because we didn't,
Yeah.
yes.
Right.
Committee, so
Fine.
thank you. I feel like it was last year, or maybe the year before, 2020 or 2021, where you finally had full staffing. So where was this position?
We had full staff we never had the supervisor position. We had full dispatch staff.
Okay.
Our last training class, so retention's generally about 70%. Our last training class, all three got through.
Right.
And we lost two, we've since then lost two of them.
But the actual numbers of staff for dispatchers was the most you'd had in a long time.
It was, that's correct.
Right, okay. So you were just missing a supervisor, but it wasn't in the budget anyway.
Correct.
And at one point, weren't you going to have somebody look at the compression issue on that supervisor job and
I've
through the union?
been trying.
I mean,
been trying very
you have to
hard.
go back through the union to do.
Yes, I have. I've been trying to work with the union on that for the upcoming negotiations.
And not you independently, you'd have to do it with labor relations and,
Correct.
right.
Yes,
But
we
that
are
is
working.
something you've
We are
been
definitely
struggling
working on. Yeah, because there's just not, and I hate to say that money always needs to be the incentive, but for what the expectations are for a supervisor, there needs to be an incentive, and $1,100 doesn't do it.
And how many supervisors do you have?
I have three.
And this will be 3?
This will be the fourth.
4.
So I'll
This will be
have
4.
I'll-
So you're
all
talking
my
about 4
eight-
different titles, or 4 individuals that it would have.
Correct. Yep.
Any other questions?
So fixing that compression, just to add to that, would not really cost a lot.
Yeah, I got a quick one.
Go ahead.
Just out of curiosity, you said calls have been up dramatically this year.
Yeah, we've been running, and it's mainly our fire and EMS. They're up about between 40 and 45%. It's crazy. The numbers are crazy.
Do you ever break that down as to what?
We look
I'm
at,
curious as to what the calls are.
yeah, so we do look at call types. A lot of the natures are like your breathing problems, your sick person. Some of that I don't think will ever change. I think that people have just started to it's become natural for them to call 911 when they're sick. Some of it was relative to people thinking they had COVID. Doctors' offices won't take people who have COVID. They don't want to sit in an emergency room for 4 hours. So what do? Call 911 because they're taking an ambulance, getting in quicker. And now that's become just natural for people.
That's the answer I thought.
Any other questions for JP2? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next up would be Lloyd Hoskins. Is Lloyd on the computer? They tell me he's on vacation, and so I think he did just provide his report, and we'll go from there.
I don't think Adam's on it.
Mr. Duckett says he has no updates. Correct? Okay, on to Assistant or Attorney Brittany.
Good evening, everyone. Our office has been working very hard. As everyone knows, we've been significantly understaffed for about a month now. We've been down a third of our attorneys. So we've been working on trying to hire people. Thankfully, we have an amazing staff, amazing attorneys who have been putting in extra hours, taking on heavier caseloads to fill those gaps. It's just not going to be sustainable long-term. So we're trying to get people in. We do have one new hire, which is great. He started Monday. He is a Marine. He has prior civil litigation experience. He took one of the entry-level positions, so I will be training him. I'll be teaching him how to handle certain felony cases, and then the other assistants are going to be training him at the local court levels. So that's exciting. I wish I had 3 of him. Unfortunately, just him so far. We have been very busy with jury trials. Office of Court Administration has put a burden on the courts to schedule us for 2 to 3 trials every trial week, which Unfortunately, smaller offices are not treated differently than larger district attorneys' offices. So we are having, right now I only have 4 attorneys that are trained at the felony level. So we are having pretty much 3 of our 4 attorneys every other week. All 3 of us are preparing for a jury trial. So you have a primary, a backup, and then a second backup that you have to be prepared for. And it's a lot of work. It's taxing, but we're getting through it. The court's being, very accommodating with us, thankfully. We just had a jury trial on January 31st. We had a guilty verdict in that, so that was successful. We have upcoming trials on the 14th, the 28th, they're scheduled. And then we're still trying to recruit. I had interviews with several people. Those offers have somewhat been put on hold temporarily. And I'm hoping in the future that we'll get to kind of push forward and get some people in the office. So if there are no questions, thank you, everyone.
I'm just curious, how many vacancies do you have now?
So currently we have 2 vacancies. We have the deputy chief and entry-level assistant district attorney. We've been working closely with HR to get those positions evaluated. We also have a support staff vacancy right now. So we are looking to get that reevaluated as well. We updated all of the descriptions for each of those positions. I think some of them haven't been updated since like the early 90s. So we're glad to kind of add more information on that and get updated so that HR can put them in the correct categories or grade levels.
Mr. Chairman.
Hey, Brittany, I understand you're having trouble hiring these people because of the uncertainty of your position.
Yeah,
Can you explain that a little bit to us?
Sure. There have been candidates specifically for the deputy chief position because anyone that has worked in a DA's office or any type of political office, that if there's uncertainty, people are not going to step into those roles with the fear that you will be fired if someone else comes in. So I actually had 2 amazing candidates for the deputy chief position. One, I couldn't obviously give him an answer in time, so we lost him. And then the other, I can't give an answer to. So I, in good faith, cannot extend offers or ask them to step into that role until we have some type of certainty. I wouldn't do it, so I can't ask that of anyone else.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Nightingale, do you have?
Staff do you have in the office?
I believe we have, don't quote me, I think we have 17.
17.
Yes, and then we have 9 attorneys. Well, we should have 9 attorneys.
9, okay. So you have 2 attorney vacancies and 1 support staff.
Correct.
Okay.
Ms. Nightingale, go ahead.
Just a clarifying, so you have 2 attorney vacancies. You had 3, but because of this Marine who stepped up, you're at 2.
Yes, you're absolutely correct, yes.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, Dale Courier, I think he's on the internet.
Yep, he's there.
Yep, he's there. Dale, go ahead. You're up.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for your time this evening. I think our report is pretty self-explanatory. I do have a couple of updates. Under the emergency medical services training, it says we're down to 6 students. I want to update that. It's 7. We had 1 pickup right at the very end, but a lot of reasons we're getting people just not real interested in EMS as a career, either paid or volunteer. So we're going to be working on that. Item D will be fairly significant. Our EMS teaching staff, there is a pay schedule for them, which is very low compared to not only surrounding counties, but some of the positions are actually now below minimum wage. We did find in the last week or so that there was a resolution passed back in late 2019 with a pay scale that was going to run for the next 5 years that we're going to need to revise. So next month, we'll come back to the committee with our recommendations for making those changes. Item Item 4, particularly for our new legislators, the information presented here regarding the Public Safety Training Center improvements. This was all presented to the legislature last year. It's a significant problem that we have as far as our ability to effectively and efficiently use our training. And we have, as most of you probably know, put in for ARPA money. This is a long-term investment. It's not a annual type of money item. We're looking at not putting Band-Aids on buildings anymore, which apparently has been going on, fixing the situation right, which should be a real good investment for the next 20 years. Other than that, do have one additional item that you may hear about. We did send out a notice of funding opportunities for hazard mitigation programs or projects rather. We sent it out to all the municipalities earlier this week. They have until I think April 1st to apply. Last year when we did the 5-year update to the county hazard mitigation plan, and all but one of the municipalities, many of them had, when they do this, they have to submit 2 projects that if money was available, they would look at doing to help their communities. A number of them put in that they would like to put in generators for critical infrastructure, such as their firehouse, town offices, et cetera. And this particular grant offering does offer funding for generators and some of the other projects. So we're hoping they'll take advantage of it. What's rather unique this year, in the past, lots of places don't apply because grant writing is not their expertise, or they're part-time, they don't have time. But New York State Division of Homeland Security and Emergency Services has offered to provide assistance to the municipalities to write these grants. So you might get a call or contacted by the municipalities, or maybe you want to reach out to them. This is an opportunity that I haven't seen available to municipalities in over 10 years for the types of things that are funded and the amount of money. So it's a real good opportunity. I hope they'll take advantage of it. And that's all I have. I'd be glad to add or clarify anything if you have it.
Leah.
Thank you. The hazard mitigation plan grant opportunities, those were presented to each of the towns, to the town board or to the volunteer fire departments?
They were sent to the town supervisors, village mayors, village clerks, town clerks.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Courier? Go ahead, Trish.
Thanks, Mark. Hi, Dale. This is Trish.
Hi, Trish. How are you?
Good, good. I just was curious about the training, the difficulties of getting people to register for the courses. And I was wondering if, I know you've done some training for individuals outside of the county. And I was wondering if there was like any opportunity to pull regionally to get our numbers to a point of where we can hold these classes, or what that looks like.
Which training are you referring to, EMS or fire?
Well, I guess either or. I wherever this challenges lie with, holding these trainings and having enough people to support the trainings themselves. Is that a challenge still? I know at one point it was.
Yeah, it still is, even on the fire side. We have couple of fire courses going now that one, and the State Office of Fire Prevention and Control pays for that training, sends in the instructors, and they usually have a minimum of 10 or maybe 15 students. One class we're running now, basic exterior firefighting, which is kind of the introductory class. We wound up with only 6 students initially, or 9 students signed up. Part of the issue is, and to answer your question, first of all, these are, whether it's EMS or fire, they're open to anybody in the state. So people can come from surrounding counties. It's not just open to people from Cayuga County. But that said, part of the registration issue for some folks was the state instituted a new learning management system about a year ago that requires people to have an email address, and they have to register themselves. They can't call us up, for example, and say, here's my info, register us. They have to deal with that because they have an account in the system, and it's tied to their email and such. So that's been an issue, but since that started, we've provided training on how to do that. The state has helped out. There's a lot of reasons people aren't signing up, and part of it is people only have a certain amount of time, and that keeps shrinking with family obligations or work obligations. And we also don't have as many people volunteering, for example, in the fire service. So the state was very benevolent. They were willing to run one of the classes with fewer than their minimum, because they also understand that if they hold to the minimum, then the people who signed up who need it aren't going to get it for a long time. So we've been working with them to get them to loosen the reins a little bit to get us what we need, particularly since training's largely been on hold the last 2 years. Does that answer your question?
It does. Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Courier? Thank you very much, Dale.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening.
Next up, J.D. Westpolaire. I'm sorry I murdered.
Good job on it, sir. I've heard a lot worse over there.
You have the floor.
Just for a shorthand for anybody that knows me, I just generally go by JD, so that's fine. The Westpolaire tends to be quite a challenge for people. Some updates for the body this evening. Talked a little bit about some potential resolutions down the road. Electronic monitoring services. I did get a tentative contract from Securus Monitoring. It was about $3,000 more than I had anticipated. The budget that I requested for electronic monitoring coming into 2022 was cut back a bit during the budget process. So I've got about a $3,000 to $3,200 shortfall. I'm going to look at my own budget, see if there might be a way to shake some money out to close that gap. If I can do that, we're good to go, and I'll bring that forward. If not, I'm going to have to come back to the body and ask for some help and figure out some ways to fill that in. Drug testing. I'm still waiting on a contract from National Test Systems. I believe I've got about $2,000 in this year's budget for drug testing. I've asked NTS to come, to hit that number, basically. I can't speak to how that may last or work going into next year. It's always often based on how many tests the officers conduct. The other feature of contracting with NTS will be that it offers us a training platform for the officers. They offer a certification program for each officer, which we've never had available before. if an officer is certified and can testify that, they know how to read the test levels, the whole system, that gives us a little bit more credibility when we have to go to a hearing with the district attorney. It also offers the ability to get our samples lab tested if need be. Just because we have someone submit to a urine screen doesn't mean that we have anything provable. The results of a saliva test or a dip test, a urine test, are not admissible into court. So we then either need to get that offender to provide us a sworn statement so that we can then work with the district attorney, or a lab result. And we've never had a relationship with a lab. So that's one of the reasons that I'm looking forward to contracting with NTS. So hopefully I get that soon and be able to bring that forward as well. Alternatives to Incarceration Board met virtually this afternoon. Some of you may have gotten an email from me a few weeks back about the ATI board and wondered to yourself, what the heck is this and why am I getting it? I am now the chairman for the county's Alternatives to Incarcerations Board. I inherited that from Mr. Boodleman. The ATI board is established under the executive law, and we are required to have a variety of people within the county represented. So chairman of the legislature, thank you, sir, for attending this afternoon. Appreciate it. Sheriff, acting district attorney, chairman of this body, representative from the drug and alcohol treatment community, mental health treatment community, a past crime victim, a past defendant. It's a pretty broad-based group of people that ideally are on this board and participate. And usually we have a pretty good turnout. We discuss current programming, program numbers in the different programs that the county funds, which we were not able today. I understand Mrs. Petrus wasn't feeling really well.
Yeah.
I hope she's feeling a little bit
Thank
better.
you.
Got to follow up with her and get some program numbers for 2021. So that's why you may have seen that email. I do attempt to have quarterly meetings, which is what is required under the law that authorizes the ATI board. It's a weird schedule because the ATI grant runs from July to June. So we just actually closed out the second quarter of the ATI program year. We will hopefully also have the new application for the 22-23 ATI program coming in soon. Usually Heather and I complete that together and then bring it to that committee for approval. So that's ATI. COVID, no real significant changes there. All staff are working in the office, following the protocols as they've been given to us. Everybody's been pretty healthy, pretty good. And then I do have two resolutions before the body this evening.
Go ahead and let's get JP3 on the books here.
Oh, I'll move it.
I got a motion for JP3. I need a second.
Second.
JP3 has been moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Do you want to have them talk about it?
Do you want to talk about it?
Well, I'm struggling like Mr. Petrus was. I can't see it on the board. I don't have it in front of me, which is JP.
That's the polygraph.
I'm sorry. It's the polygraph. Okay. Yeah, thank you. Wrong glasses. Or bigger boards.
I can read it for you, Jay, if you.
That's okay. Well, good. So as part of our supervision of sex offenders, probation is required to polygraph test offenders kind of randomly during the course of their supervision. We've not been able to do this for a couple of years now, in part because of COVID, but also because we lost the individual who was providing our tests. We've generally had about the same amount of money funded, usually between $3,000 and $3,600. We currently have $3,600. The number of tests given in a year fluctuates. It depends on how many sex offenders we have under supervision, when the last time they were tested, if they've recently come out of incarceration, if they're actively involved in a counseling program. This individual We'll charge $275 per test. That's approximately 13 tests per year at the amount of money we have budgeted. We rarely ever test that many, so we will be at or below the budgeted amount. So this is something that we're required to do, and we just need to get back in with an active testing program.
Do you test people to see if they filed their conditions of probation? Is that what you,
That's
like,
part
I
of what's-
swear to that I've done these things, or?
Yep, yep, it's compliance with the ordering conditions. It's pretty much an open game, so we can, are you following your ordering conditions? Have you accessed pornography on the internet? Do you have an internet connection? It's to both judge compliance with the ordering conditions, but also it opens the door to have, if they've been through a treatment program, has it worked? Are they getting any benefit out of it? Are their answers consistent with what they should have learned during a course of treatment?
Dennison.
I guess my question on that, in today's world we live in, and maybe Brittany can answer this too, because I mean, isn't a polygraph test not admissible in court? I mean, if somebody says, well, I don't care what the test says, I didn't do that, where do we go from there? I can answer that. I mean.
Yeah, not admissible, correct.
So, I mean.
We still.
Go ahead and give me one, I'll tell you it's not right. I'm just saying that. I mean, where are we going here?
What it allows the officer to do is to follow up and potentially start looking into other aspects of this individual's
It's another tool of supervision.
If they tell the polygraph tester, because the results are shared with the officer, that they're accessing pornography on the internet, that tells my folks that they need to go out and do a home check, or they need to.
So where does that stand though? I mean, if you ask that question, I'm not trying to get into the weeds, but if you ask that question, have you watched pornography on your computer, and they say no, and the polygraph says they're lying, do you now have the right to go, as Chris just said, trash their house to check their computer?
It's your,
because if it's not admissible, do you have the right to,
We always have the authority under the ordering conditions to do a home contact. It's one of the 3 standard conditions that every person on probation in the state of New York has. So yes, my officers, based on that exam, have probable cause to go out and do a home contact, and in the most polite terms, trash the house.
And get the.
Toss, come on now. We're totally under the bus.
oh, did you say toss? I said trash. Trash. I'm sorry.
We look at home contacts and searches in a couple of different ways, and we don't really need to go down that road. But yes, it gives the officers probable cause to go out or to pull that individual in for an office contact and look at that individual and say, oh, by the way, bring your cell phone, bring your laptop, bring your tablets. And then we do a forensic test with those, or we can turn them over to another agency to have them tested to backtrack where they've been online. It opens doors that we then have the authority to go through and can lawfully justify.
I mean, I'm all for it, don't get me wrong, because, some might be upset, but I don't exactly like the direction we're going in this country right now. Letting more criminals out and whatnot, so I'm all for it. I just wanted to know if it's works, that's all.
It establishes probable cause for us in the same manner that a urine screen.
Any other questions about JP3? We got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. JP4. Let me read it.
Looking at what is probably the first retirement in a generational shift in the department. One of our supervisors has announced that she will be retiring at the end of March. So looking for permission to fill a probation supervisor's position and any backfills that are created.
I'll move it.
Have motion and a second. Thank you.
Okay.
Any discussion?
Only discussion I have, so you would, for the backfill, you would come with another one then, because you don't have that in here. You just said you wanted to fill that and backfill, but that's not written.
If that's necessary, that I'm fine. My understanding from talking to Human Resources was that would not be necessary because it's got the terminology to approve the backfills, but.
Got it in the.
What does our lawyer say about that? Just want to make sure, that's all.
It is in the resolution, he said, Andy.
Yeah, it's in the results section.
Oh, okay, I'm going by what we're getting.
Right, in the actual resolution.
It is in there,
says
okay.
allowed a
All
backfill.
right, I'm good then. It's not in this part, that's all.
Any other discussion for JP 4? I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Disapproved? Noes? What I'm trying to say.
Against.
Nays, against? None? Approved. Thank you, Jay.
Thank you very much.
Been one of them days.
One more.
She doesn't get to. The sheriff. Yep. Trying to catch up with my brain here.
Good evening again. I always get to go last when everybody's ready to go home. You have my report. I just wanted to add the last bullet. I mentioned in my report that I'd give a quick update relative to our survey and our community collaborative plan. For the new legislators, may not be familiar, but in the summer of 2020, the then governor mandated that any municipality with a law enforcement agency perform an exercise with the public to determine how the public wanted to view their law enforcement agency moving into the future. So we did do that at the end of 2020 and in 2021. I partnered with Legislator McNabb Coleman and Legislator Daly and members of the public community stakeholders to put a plan together that the legislative body approved and submitted to the state, to the governor's office in April of last year. With that came a few items that needed to be, some tasks that needed to be performed primarily by me and the legislature, but we've been accomplishing those tasks as we were asked to do. And one of those items that was shaken out from that was that there would be a yearly meeting with the legislature in March, an open meeting with the public to review the progress of the plan and review results of a community survey that we also will be putting out once a year per the plan. That survey was put out in November. We ran it, kept it open until the end of January. We did receive 464 responses. I did email all of you today some of the information that came from those public surveys. And in addition to that, I do have some comments that were submitted by individuals that submitted responses to the surveys that some of the information in there is going to have to be redacted, such as names and some things that shouldn't be shared. But we're working on doing that, and I will provide that to the legislature. I have spoken with Chairman Gould about setting up that meeting for March per the plan, and I know that he's working on that. So we'll be looking forward to coming together with the legislative body and any interested community member to look at where we're at on that. So other than what's in my report, I don't have anything else. Happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Do you have a rough breakdown? I mean, 400 and whatever it was. I mean, did you get like a wide range of the county, or was it more centered to the city of Auburn? Or?
So in the information I sent, and I know you didn't have the time to digest that today, I'm sure. But
well, the print was really small on this thing.
Okay, hard to read. There is a breakdown that tells you how many surveys come from a particular area. So it was widespread. There were over 100 surveys that came from the city of Auburn, but it looks like, you know, if you look at the demographic data, it touched the entire county. But the majority of the surveys did come from the responses came from the city of Auburn. But it did touch on the whole county.
Any other questions for the sheriff? Sir, I think you have two resolutions, JP5.
JP5 is a resolution to fill two vacant sheriff custody officer positions that are open due to retirement. They are budgeted for. Move it.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? No discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried. JP6, sir.
JP6, we currently have a victim advocate that is actually embedded into our sheriff's office, employed by Cayuga Counseling Services. We have a partnership with Cayuga Counseling through a grant, Department of Justice grant that we were awarded some time ago that allows us to have that advocate right at our office to work with victims of crime when we're working on cases at the actual time that we're dealing and investigating those cases. APD, the Auburn Police Department, also has a victim advocate. Through Cayuga Counseling, we both have the same funding to do that. This resolution deals with some additional funding that came available relative to that grant to allow us to do some analysis using an outside research analyst to look at each case that this victim advocate has helped an individual with, to see if, to give us a report of how this program is working, if we're having an impact, and if it is something that is worthwhile. So the city of Auburn has also applied for the same level of funding, and this research analyst, if we accept this grant funding, will look at Auburn PD's program and our program and then give us a report about the success or, failures of the particular program. I think it's a very positive program, and this is funding that we can get to do some analysis of it, and no, there's no match by us needed. It's fully funded by the Department of Justice relative to that program.
Can I say something first?
Yes.
Well, we'll do the motion in a second.
Move it.
I need a motion.
Move it.
Moved by Andy. I need a second.
Second.
Second by Ms. Kerr.
Analysis? is
Any discussion?
Required? I mean, was this part of they wanted to really get some real evidence about whether this investment was worth it?
The original grant did not mandate that we do this. This was an add-on so that we could bring this person in to take a look and see if it's successful or not, to get that data and break it down in such a way that we can take a close look at it and determine if it was successful. But it wasn't mandated by the original grant proposal to bring the victim advocate in. Does that answer your question?
Is this mandated now to take a look at the efficacy of it? I mean,
it's not mandated, but it's something that will allow us to do that.
okay.
And
I
it's,
just
again,
wondered
it's
if you were
fully,
doing it on your own or,
no, this is part of that same
Grant.
program,
All right.
but just some additional funding that would allow us to do that.
Yep.
Chris, did you?
Just before we vote, I want to say something. Anybody else got, no? Sorry.
Huh?
I'd like the record to reflect that I'm abstaining from JP, whatever.
JP6. All right, let that record noted. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? One abstains. Abstention.
I abstained.
Abstained, you did. All right.
All right, move on.
You're abstaining, all right.
You're abstaining. Okay. Carried.
Come on.
Last resolution, it's Ledge 1, resolution urging the state of New York to amend criminal justice reforms. And that resolution is from Mr. Bob Shea. Mr. Shea, if you have any comments you'd like to make?
I think it's just another avenue to support our law enforcement. These folks go out in harm's way every day. And to be able to incarcerate some bad people, to incentivize them not to go and repeat their offense, I think is something that we as a legislature should do. And also add to some, protect our citizens. I think we're obligated to protect our public.
I'll move it.
I got a motion. I need a second.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I just wanted to be clear because it looks pretty self-explanatory. If we were to support this, this is really giving the judicial discretion that we've talked about, that judges will have more discretion. It will just simply extend the timeline of discovery from 30 to 45 days and ask for the additional funding to local communities. So if we support this, really those three, that's the premise of the three requests to the
The
governor.
timeline is the timeline, correct, Britt?
Yeah,
We haven't changed anything on the timeline.
It
That's,
says by extending the time in which discovery in a criminal case must be provided to a defendant to 45 days from the date of arraignment to relieve the unnecessary burden. So I assumed it was 45 days is a longer period of time that normally you have.
Correct. It depends on
The type of case.
the type of case,
135
if they're
days.
incarcerated or not incarcerated.
We're just-
But yes,
We're asking for a little more time.
that's my understanding, yes.
Okay. And well as judicial discretion, as well as more money locally.
Yes, I believe that's
Okay. That
what
seems
was
reasonable.
indicated, yes.
That's the way I feel about it. It sums up.
Yep.
So I don't have to speak now.
I just
Okay,
got it immediately.
Well done.
I was just reading the.
Any other,
I had looked at this before I came and just wanted to understand if we're supporting this. These are the three conditions we're supporting.
any other questions on G, or I guess it's ledge?
Ledge one.
Ledge
Yeah,
one.
this will be a ledge.
All right, oh, go
I'll
ahead.
just say, I haven't had a chance to really look
I
at
mean, do we
this.
really have to even vote on it? It's a ledge resolution. We can vote on it.
Based on what you're describing, I would have my support.
Technically,
That's
it's a
absolutely
ledge resolution. I'm not even sure why it's on the committee.
We can do it at the full ledge. It was.
Yeah, right.
It doesn't.
It's just for our information. It's to be voted on at the legislative meeting.
I'm gonna refer to the,
It's changed.
I mean, that's true, but the point was to bring it up for discussion purposes, and
Exactly.
typically,
we just hold it over to ledge one.
yeah.
You got a first and a second.
Yeah, so at this point, it's probably easier just to, whatever you guys want to do.
Doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to vote on it on the floor. It's,
Well, then, if we,
Do we have to, or does the person who made, if we want us not go forward with the vote, does the person who made the motion and the second have to recant that?
What the hell is so difficult about saying A or nay and be
No, I'm-
done with it, and then do it again at the ledge meeting?
my only question was whether we needed to vote on it tonight. I don't care. We can vote on it tonight and at the ledge meetings.
well,
I knew that was coming.
I guess if it's my committee, I have that decision, we'll vote on it tonight. All in favor?
Aye.
All right,
Any opposed? Carried, thank you.
adjourn.
Christ.
Need a second?
Second.
Chris wants to get going on his.
Yeah, I totally do.
Thank you, everybody, for your patience.
Microphone.
Ladies and I don't think there's a need to do a roll call because I believe everyone is here. At this point, I'll take a motion to approve the minutes from, okay, motion in a second.
Oh, I can't do that.
Right.
Not on the committee.
Thank you.
Sorry.
So much fun having us all here.
Nice catch. All right, so now we have a motion in a second. Any discussion on the minutes? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
None opposed, I'm assuming. All right, so we have the Records Advisory Committee. You see the names, you guys all have the information.
Move it.
Motion by legislator Petcher, second.
I'll second.
Second, thank you. Any discussion on the appointments? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried, that's nice. I know there was a questionable guy from Weedsport in there, so I didn't know if it would make it through. So at this point, I'd like to open up how about, ladies, would you like to jump in with the,
Jumping in, that's
with the redistricting, or do you want to just talk about your,
a report.
yeah, say like any questions, go, or which one?
The only thing we probably should just firm up, since we did the report, is that we made a visit to Moravia and we're going to move the early voting location from Venice to the new Moravia Town Hall, which is beautiful.
It is.
And it's perfect for voting. It's a separate entrance where the voters go in. It's all handicapped accessible. Parking is separate from the town hall parking, so it's really it's gonna be a good setup. And there's more population in that area than around Venice, plus nobody knew where the Venice Town Hall was. So we think that we'll get more people it's easier than giving directions to, turn right at the snowplow. The other thing is that was it yesterday?
Yeah.
Time flies.
I don't know,
We're having
maybe the
such
day
fun.
before, it doesn't matter.
We checked out the new firehouse in Auburn to use as a polling location, and it's beyond perfect.
Yeah.
It is beautiful.
At the old phase up there?
Yeah, the old face. I don't know, I refer to it as the old PNC, so everybody's dating themselves. But we're using it for early voting, for the primary day and election day, not for early voting.
Not for early voting.
And the other thing, we have gotten state approval to consolidate the voting locations in the city of Auburn for the primary and the general election. So we will have voting in Auburn. Anybody in the city of Auburn will be able to vote at any one of the 4 locations in the city. So
That's made possible through the on-demand,
so you
right?
can't go to the wrong polling place.
Right.
That's great.
And it should also cut down on affidavit ballots where people walk in, they're in the wrong place, and then they don't bother going to the place they're supposed to be. So, we're trying to, the state was impressed that we were doing it. We had to get exempted from a couple of things, and we're apparently the only ones who've thought to try it, so we're doing it.
Nice.
Great, thank you.
So any questions for the commissioners before we get into their presentation regarding redistricting and some potential districts?
Does anybody need a packet? I don't know who you sent them to.
I sent them out electronically. I have some copies here. Heidi, you got one, right?
Packet? I got one, I didn't print it.
Oh, okay. So this is, I got these
I
two.
didn't read them, didn't print them, I thought it was part of the package.
I didn't even see mine on my.
That I printed
Oh, okay.
for tonight.
I got it.
Was that the last one?
Nope, not at all.
Why I need you say yes or no? More paper.
You want to say?
Do you have anything other than this?
Jim, do you want one?
It's basically just.
Coming up to a show. I left mine at my desk.
There's a couple here.
Oh.
Yeah, basically. And it
I don't
has,
have any of that. Thank you, man.
this one actually is.
Is
more
this just one?
comprehensive.
Oh, she's got it for him, thank you.
Pretty much of anything.
This,
You don't need.
Everybody good?
Did I take the last
Anybody
one?
wanna,
For the
I
chair
didn't
one.
take the last one.
a map? I printed out map.
No,
Okay, thanks.
it's her copy that got copied.
I guess it was, they had him do 8.
They're all.
Can we get another packet, Joe?
And the other thing we have a few of the Congressional Assembly and Senate maps too, if anybody needs those.
Can I leave mine up there? The one that you just gave me?
I'm sorry?
I probably left the one you,
Did, we gave it away.
I'll take one of those.
yeah, she already gave it away?
Can I give you one?
You want one?
Yeah.
Oh, not really. You put that on there.
Oh,
Just to let me know this looks over, I guess.
Different one. It was the line through.
Oh, can I have the sticker?
He split
Did you have a what?
Congress line.
Mine is at my desk. I got it.
You want one? Yeah, is that what he said?
Thanks. You? No.
I didn't give you 2 there, did I?
No.
Okay.
5 districts.
This one's for 15 districts.
Did I hear one?
It stays the same. But they're more, they'll explain it to you.
I have 2 more if anybody else wants them.
They're, so even staying at 15, you have to move them around. So, in order to decrease the discrepancy between the weighted votes, but again, the ladies will.
All right, I got it.
She put a note on there. So you want us to get right into it?
Sure, unless there's any question, it looks like everybody wants to go into the, presentation, so there's no questions with regard to your monthly report. I'd say we get going.
Okay, Kate actually did some number crunching this afternoon. After first off, we learned yesterday in our webinar that we need to we thought we needed to revamp our whole system because we were going by 10% instead of 5% difference in alleged districts. And we didn't know the 40% rule that if towns could be split if they were 40% of the whole. So we didn't realize that. So and there was one other thing we didn't counter, but so we thought we might have to redo everything again for you, which they all can be anyway, if you want us to do that. But Kate crunched some numbers this afternoon, and actually, if there were 11 districts, if you did go to the 11, we only have 1 district that doesn't fall in that block between 6,700 and 7,100, right?
On the
Something like
sheets
that.
on the sheets that you've got in your packet, you've got you should have a sheet for 11, a sheet for 15, and then 1 sheet for 9. And it's got a range at the top where it says average. That is the number of people from the census, the population, not voters.
Right.
Population, the number of people who should be in the district, every district. And you're allowed to be off by 5% total, from the smallest one to the largest district. So where we have a range on, if you just take a look at number 11, where it says 11 districts, 11 legislative seats.
We have another event, Cayuga now. Oh, I only have just this. You're looking at something different.
I got it.
I'm looking at the sheet.
Right, okay. Is it?
7105.
Want this one? I got it.
I don't have
Is it this one? Is this what you're looking for?
I don't have anything.
Look for that packet.
Yeah, you're looking to make a printout, so I don't have enough.
Do you have an extra of these?
No, I haven't, you can have this
Katie,
one,
do you have an
but
extra of this?
I did not print out the pack.
Yeah, we do have an extra of that.
Here, I got it for you.
The census numbers?
Well, here, this one. I think she's looking for the other one, actually. Like the packet,
paper
the
you're
one that you're
referring
looking at.
to. If you don't, all right.
I don't know, I've got another one of those.
They're not in the packet?
They are in the emailed copy.
I thought we had them in the new packet too. I thought Key had printed it off.
Did you get one of those?
They might not be in order.
Oh, I have all these, they're just maps.
Oh. There's another packet.
Look at yours.
Right.
I can find it.
I'll just email it.
No, that's in here. So what Katie's talking from, Katie is working from this.
Oh.
Yep, that from the 11, that page.
You
there.
share.
Oh, she needs it, Elaine needs it, yes.
Yep, there you go. So that's the
Oh, thank you.
What she's working on.
On 11, all right, so if you look at the sheet for 11 seats, if you're going to have 11 seats, the average size is going to be 6,930. That's how many, that's your goal, is to get to that number. You can be off by a total of 5%, so it's really plus or minus 2.5. So you can be under by 2.5 or over by 2.5. So your range, where we had 7584 to 7276, it actually is less than that, because when we did this, we did 5% plus or minus. So it's really 2.5%. So it's 6756 to 7104 would be the range. And if you take a look at the districts that we put together, all of the new legislative seats would fit underneath, would be legitimate under that parameter, except one, which is the Aurelius Springport Fleming, and it's over by 200 people. But the other thing, which aside from the 10% being really 5%, the other thing that we found out from the seminar yesterday, which was actually a very good seminar, it was very good, where we had said that you could not divide a town or a city or a village, any place that had fewer than 10,000 people, which meant that the only places in Cayuga County, the only place that could be divided in Cayuga County was the city of Auburn. So that was the reason, that was how we ended up trying to finagle all of these towns. And quite honestly, there aren't a lot of ways to rearrange the towns and have them be contiguous. They have to be contiguous. So there aren't a lot of combinations. Once you say they have to be touching each other, and you can't divide any towns. But the new restrictions have changed the 10,000 number, and they've made it 40% of, you cannot divide any municipality that is less than 40% of the size of a district. So if you have, let's use 11 as an example again. If you have 11 legislative seats and your average size is going to be 6,930, your 40% of that is going to be 277, or 2,772, excuse me.
Yeah, decimal
I've never been good with decimal points.
Yeah.
So in the case of 11 seats, we have 4 towns that actually could be divided. So if we couldn't get to one person, one vote with using whole towns, we could divide Brutus, Owasco, Senate, and Sterling. Those 4 towns would be large enough that they could be divided in order to come up with the right size district.
So
for 15, if you were going to have 15 seats, if you were going to keep the legislature at 15, there are 11 towns that could be divided. So almost half of the county towns could be divided.
So I think it's fair to say that what you guys presented to us was the fairly limited number of options that we had prior. But with this recent ruling or discovery, I think it's fair to say that there may be a lot more options that pop.
Right.
Well, one thing that may be possible, which was totally impossible,
Right now.
was doing 13.
Right. We couldn't get to 13 at all with these numbers, but if we can divide towns, we may be able to get
You
there.
could decrease the size to 13. You wouldn't have to go all the way down to 11. 11
Works in the city though, too.
Works.
It really does.
I agree. I think 11 is the most practical.
Yeah, 11 works with the numbers as we had them.
And
But 13, we never even tried
Because we couldn't.
because there was no way to combine the town of Brutus with any other town. All the ones that touch it were too big.
We're only 2.
There were only 2, Senate and Ments.
Cato, I think.
And, well, but it doesn't matter. Whatever we added to it made it too big.
Yeah.
And alone, it was too small, so.
We didn't do 13, that's
So
why we did.
13 is not, hasn't been touched at all as far as trying to put together.
But if we're gonna go back to the drawing board, we can certainly do that. We can certainly try again.
We can try 13.
I think that was, I just want to make that point that's a pretty crucial revelation today, is that there may be more options. Just if I could drive home that point.
What did you do, 13 and 15?
We did 15 and 11.
And 9,
Okay.
but we didn't do maps for 9.
We did 9, but the maps for, we
We
did
really
the
didn't
county
think-
map, but we didn't do the map for the city.
At 9, the districts, in my opinion, get very large at 9. You know, so that's just my opinion.
Say that again, Chris?
At 9, the districts get very large. I think it's
Oh, yeah.
possible, but.
It's like, average is 8,400.
And geographically, particularly in the south, they become quite large.
Yeah.
You already got 4.
No.
I'm going to five.
No, average voter with 11 is 6,930. What's the average with staying at 15?
With 15 is 5,083.
Basically, what we're supposed to be at right now, 5,000 plus or minus.
Right.
And when we go to 11, we go to
As you know,
7,000 plus or minus. Katie or
We
Cheryl,
received an update just today on the number of people currently in your legislative
Right.
districts.
Some increased by 10 or 20 and
Yeah.
others decreased by 10 and 20.
Just since the census came out, which I didn't quite understand.
We don't know where those numbers came from.
Here are-
Planning.
Here are sheets for all of those. And they go from, the largest district is a population of
Aileen.
It's Wasco, isn't it?
Yeah, it's gotta be Aileen.
6,856. And the smallest one is, the city one's 4,930.
Yeah, Mahonic's old one, right? Is it?
Mahunix is number 12, 4,027. Yeah, that's the smallest.
That's my district.
Yeah, 4,027 is
Lowest
the,
weighted vote.
Rain takes a little to catch up.
Can I just ask a silly question?
yeah.
I'm looking at the 11 districts and I'm looking at the colored map here. Why would they put not, or why Venice is in the pink or red, whatever you want to call it, and not black?
Numbers.
It's all about numbers.
Numbers.
And it's all about trying to put the combination together that touch each other, that get you to the right number.
There's only so many ways to puzzle piece because of the constrictions that are placed upon us by the whomever.
Okay.
That we can fit it together. And again,
The city, with 11 seats, the city divides just
Really
about
well.
into quarters with Genesee and north-south.
Yeah, I think-
Exactly right at where you would say the main crossroads is, it would be quadrants.
So there'd be 4
There'd
city
be 4
legislators.
seats. Right. There'd be 4 seats in the city, and they would cross at north-south and Genesee.
yeah, it's
Almost.
And if you did change to 15, there'd only be 5 seats in the city, not 6.
So the
Because
city's
it's
gonna
still a
lose.
third of the
you're
county.
growing some of the other ones to
Right.
even out the. Could you ladies speak, because I found it, I believe it was, and I get it mixed up, because I talked to both of you today. I think it might have been Katie, I'm not sure. But I know I talked about it with you both. I found it very interesting. Practicable. Could you?
Practicable.
Practicable.
Means we have to do it if it's
possible, you have
to do it.
So.
We got that drilled into us yesterday
There's
in that webinar.
there is no requirement that you have to pick the best combination. In other words, if you draw a map that has 11 seats and they're, they all fall within the right limits. And let's say I draw a map and I've got them drawn one way and Cheryl draws a map and she's got them another way, and they're both within the limits, there is no requirement that you pick the best one. You don't have to pick the one that's closest to it. You just have to pick one that fits it.
Right.
It just has to be legal. It doesn't have to be the best.
Within their parameters.
So it can't be challenged. Like somebody couldn't go to court and say, you shouldn't have done this because this would be a better fit. It's not an argument over what's the best.
Just within the parameters prescribed.
So what would fit into the definition of the best one?
Right now, the only one that fits the definition is 11. With the maps we've got here. But we can go back and rework with the new limits. We can go back and rework the one for 15 and certainly
try 13.
13.
All right, so what I'd like to do, is before we talk about how we're gonna move forward, one more thing, and anything that you ladies have, but one more thing I found very interesting, and I'd like you guys to explain, because you could do it better than me, is that if we, I hate to say this because I like 11, but, yeah, so if we stay interested in fairness at 15, we do not have to, it's a permissive referendum, right?
Right, we don't have to go to any.
And then, but at 11, we will have to have an actual referendum, which is to say that we will pass it and then people have to pass it.
If you change the number of legislative
Then you
seats,
have to have
either increase or decrease. If you change the number of legislative seats, it has to go on the ballot in November. If it goes on the ballot in November, you have to have the drawings, everything done, approved and the language to the Board of Elections by August 8th.
Which I don't think is a huge lift, but it's something that we need to.
August 8th is your deadline. If you're going to change. If you're going to change.
Does everybody get that? Any questions on that?
That has to be into both of you by August 8th, right?
Right.
Okay. So moving forward, what I would, you guys got more questions?
And if if it stays at 15, the legislative new districts just have to be voted on by
approved by the legislature.
And there could be some permissive.
Unless they circulate the petitions.
Right.
Right. So it's sort of.
They have to circulate petitions that they want.
We don't like.
That they want it on the ballot.
Exactly.
Okay.
But again, I'm confident in the commissioner's ability to get it on the ballot.
Permissive referendum.
Sorry, go
I
ahead.
would like to say that we shouldn't let the amount of work and the time constraint be the determining factor.
Right. Agreed, 100%. Are there any other questions before I talk about how we could possibly move forward? Anything at all? All right, so I'm the only nerd that loves this stuff. All right, so moving forward, I thought that it might be nice, what I like is if you guys are in agreement with it. Cheryl, to set up kind of an ad hoc committee, which would consist of the commissioners and then 2 legislators whom are recommended by the majority and minority parties. Does that sound good? Questions? A Democrat and a Republican. Obviously.
Wait a minute.
Well, whatever the majority and the minority party.
I think the other thing is that we should have a person.
Absolutely.
Legal.
I thought it could expand from there. That's the nucleus. And then we could have planning.
We need a person from legal.
From legal too.
Absolutely legal. And I think you guys worked with planning pretty closely.
But
That stuff that bridges crossed.
I think all we need, I don't think we need it.
All right, so let's find somebody
Everything
from legal, and I know we can talk about that because there's some different things. So we'll add the legal component, but starting out with a nucleus of 4. People feel good about that? So that's good. So any comments, questions? Now's the time.
I guess the charge would be to see what people are interested in, right?
Right.
Well, also, I think, to sort of, correct me if I'm wrong, ladies, I think that it's more eyes on the data and, so they're not stuck holding the bag, and it more more eyes on the data for potentially now with the revelation of the potentially, I don't like it at all, but dividing towns, you know, so there may be more than just what was provided to us. So I think, but yes, with an eye to eventually streamlining to that 11, because everybody wants it.
Well, that's my point. We
Oh,
need to
nice.
figure out-
Try, Chris.
We need to sort of figure out
Right.
as we go through, but what is the flavor of the body in terms of,
Well, you know what I think.
I don't know.
I don't want to see.
Yeah, really.
Okay, so we'll go, you start and then we'll go to Lady.
The only thing I don't want to see is, I think splitting the town is bad. I can just see, you know, that's going to create headache and heartache and there's going to be a lot of.
Erupt and pitchforks and torches.
Yes, I see that coming down the road. So if whatever it takes to avoid that is where we need to be. That's my opinion.
Thank you. Yes,
How
ma'am.
does it serve our constituents to split a town?
Agreed. Ask, you know, Albany. I don't think it does. But that doesn't mean that I couldn't be shown documentation. I think we at least, in the interest of fairness and justice, we at least need to explore the potential. We don't need to know what that opens up for us today. I don't like it, but I think we should at least look at it, right? Ladies, that's.
Yeah, I think if you want to look at 13, at the possibility of 13 legislators, which is the next step down from the size you are now, there isn't any, you have to split towns.
How about this? Is there, before we give these guys more work, is there any interest in looking at 13?
that was really my question, what I was trying to get at.
Oh, okay.
Or do we even want, right?
Gotcha. I thought you meant.
People may need time to digest all this stuff.
All right, Mr. Chairman, I see you.
Yeah, if we do change the number from 15 to whatever, and it's on the referendum on the ballot in November, when does this take effect?
23.
23.
In
Everybody would be up for election
in 23.
with the new districts the next year.
2023, the entire full election.
November of 23.
Yep.
Okay.
And to take office in 24.
Take office in January 24.
Okay, that's why we stopped the staggered terms.
The referendum would be November of this year.
22.
Right.
Right.
It's an easy lift in my mind, but we need to start now. Yes, sir.
Sure. I think if you don't look at 13, people are going to want to know why.
Fair enough. I don't know.
If
I just don't want to run these ladies ragged, you know.
15 down to 11, why?
I think.
Why not? And of course, they might say, why not 14, 13, 12, but.
Well, there's only so many different parameters and I think we should always, and again,
Put together 13 that would be ugly enough that nobody would like it.
well, you know.
The point is sometimes you have to.
I got a new favorite Democrat.
But I think that's something that.
Well, again, we need to look at it, but I think also being a conservative Republican, I think that in my mind, anytime we can shrink the size of government, we should at least entertain the possibility. So if we look at 13, I just don't want these guys to go on a wild goose chase when nobody is interested in 13. If there's the slightest bit of interest in 13, let's look at it. And that this new committee we put together.
I don't think it's that difficult to look at 13, truthfully.
I mean, we can do it.
It's not going to be that time consuming to do it.
Yes, ma'am.
In the spirit of shrinking government, I think that taking away 2 legislators shrinks it by $26,000 a year compared to other levels in the county, and then takes away the access, because now instead of having 6,000 people that you're trying to get their voices into the room, you have 8,000. So I'm thinking that is less voices in the room. So
Fair enough.
So you're in favor of 21?
no, no, but you don't want to hear what I'm really in favor of.
Chris, I agree with Jim, though. I hate to have Katie and then, you know, if these guys do another 13, but I.
We need to look at all.
Out for, because if we don't do it, as Jim said, people are gonna ask why we didn't.
Absolutely.
I just skip down. My other interest in this is the big, for the rural districts, the bigger they get, the harder it's gonna be to represent those people.
Sure. So, again, everybody's comfortable with the sort of core nucleus of the commissioners and 2 legislators and someone from legal. So if that's okay with everybody, I'd ask the majority and minority leader to please give us recommendations. We'll figure out what we're gonna do with legal. And, because in the interest of an expeditious meeting, if there's no other questions,
Sorry.
no problem, go for it.
Maybe incorporating part of the city in the touching outlying towns?
That could be legal.
It could, what?
Instead of just the city being separate.
No, I know what you're saying. I'm interested in Katie's.
That would be legal. I mean, that would, you could do, you know, I mean, there were, we talked about it.
Absolutely.
If we were
tried not to do that,
yeah,
but
we tried not to do it, but
it can be done.
You know,
It can, yeah. And it's just what Onondaga got in trouble for pinwheeling the city of Syracuse.
yeah, you pinwheel the city and go out, you take the west end of Auburn and attach it to Aurelius or
That type of thing.
in order to
Senate,
get to the right number.
11,
Yeah.
And why was that trouble?
Well,
And the reason it was in trouble, it doesn't apply in our situation because we don't have anywhere near the trigger number of minority population or interest group population. And that's what the challenge always is on pinwheeling, that you're taking neighborhoods in order to isolate minority voters.
So to be clear, that doesn't apply in Cayuga County.
it's just like the commissioner said, it's legal. I don't know if I like it, but it's legal.
Yeah, it's not, it would be legal to do. You could take you could do it with Senate. You could say, all right.
I need the donuts.
The east end of Auburn, and tack on the area near Auburn High School, tack it on to Owasco.
Right.
They're on opposite sides of the inlet outlet, whatever it is.
And then like that, and then also Brutus being split broadens the horizon, so to speak. Yes, sir.
For the ladies, this map, I like what I see as far as what you did here, can you, when you produce these districts and this map also, take a red marker or something and mark the old districts over, like an overlay, so we can see?
I have old ones, if that, I could just sort of produce for people.
He's looking for a before and after in one shot.
Yeah, like here's.
In one shot, to be able to do an overlay.
And then here's 11.
We did think about that.
We did think about it, but
we couldn't find the.
It'd be hard to do an
No, you just a red line to show the old district, especially it's all by town on this.
It all sounds real easy, but you can tell by looking at this that
Katie's kindergarten drawing?
I didn't have the easiest time in kindergarten because of coloring. So
it's hard to stay in the lines, is it?
You can't have markers anymore.
They've taken away all the colored ink in the office. I can't play with maps at all anymore.
I can see if I can find one out.
Yeah, I think we
Red marker.
can get the planning department to do it.
Could you please? Yeah.
We could get them to do it.
I think that would.
They're gonna have to
give
do
a-
maps anyway.
That would give
My coloring is not going to wash
Before and
it.
after.
Well, yeah, we'll give a good visual where we are 15 today and where we are
Right.
15 versus 13,
Right.
15 versus 11.
Yeah.
A visual will help out for a lot of people.
Tricia, sorry, who am I missing?
Oh.
Sorry.
Yeah, I guess I just want to say, just give my initial impressions on this, that I would have some concerns splitting the city. I think we would need to have some conversations about that. I'm just thinking of myself, like, city, if I was having to represent a sliver of Owasco and the city, those are very different things sometimes. And I just think that's potentially something that concerns me. So all the options should be explored. we should be looking at everything. But it's the same as splitting a town, you know, that doesn't really resonate well with me either. Then you got two different representatives representing the interests of one municipality. But yeah, I appreciate all the work you guys are doing on this, and I'm sure planning can help you with the overlay maps.
Yeah, the map situation.
Yeah,
This is
yeah.
why it might be nice to have them on
the screen.
And,
I thought everybody was looking at me.
I quit teaching because of overlays and
So to Trish's point, I'm not too, I don't think it's a great idea to split towns either. But if we don't show it or look at it and say, this is what would happen if we went to 13
yeah, I think.
and went for the one, we're going for one vote, this is
Right.
what you would see. That's an easy show and tell to
the other thing is that
constituents.
the first, you know, you've got your priority list of how legally, how they look at how the districts are drawn. And the number one priority is the one person, getting to one person, one vote. So when you've got a county like ours that is 90 miles long and, you know, 1.5 feet wide, there are not a lot of options. It does, you know, none of the towns touch a lot of other, you know, one question that I raised, and I don't think I didn't get an answer to it, and I tried Albany and tried a couple places. If you've got 4 towns and they cross at one point, so that they look just like, you know, perfect, like that, are the 2 that are diagonal, are they
considered
contiguous?
Right.
And gee, nobody's ever asked us that.
And how is that possible?
You know, they touch.
Right. It seems like a reasonable, we all learn about the 4 corners in geography. Yes, ma'am.
If we have the more equal population, can we start discussion about omitting the weighted voting?
That's the whole purpose.
That's the whole purpose.
Yeah.
So will that automatically happen then? We will know.
Once we redistrict, that's the whole idea.
Right.
Yes, ma'am.
One person, one vote.
Everybody's vote.
So you can't have that 8-4-7 against and the 7 wins. It's one of the reasons.
The other thing that you've got in your packet that was sent to you is the census data. And what you should take a look at, it's very instructive, is the towns and the city and the loss of population. There's only one place that gained population,
Ready for this one?
and it's the town of Sterling.
Because of Jim. Beachfront.
And everything else lost population. And people who think that, you know, Auburn is losing population and everybody's moving to Owasco and Senate, ain't true. Owasco and Senate lost population. Auburn lost less than most of the towns.
They didn't really think that, they were just saying.
Yeah, I mean, you know, a lot of people make assumptions about it. So if you take a look at the census data, the other thing that's interesting is to look at the voting age population. And our county's getting very old. There are no young people.
All right, so, any further questions?
I think this is awesome.
Okay, very good. I'm so excited. Thank you.
Chris, when do you want the majority and minority leader to get back to? Sooner the better, so we can.
Exactly what I'm thinking is next month. I think next month is reasonable.
Well,
I think by the ledge
we can
meeting.
get back to you next month if you get a name, get a couple of people.
Sooner the better.
You ought to be able to get an answer by the ledge meeting.
You can get a name right away.
Fair enough. I just don't want anybody to get mad at me. We gotta get this done.
Well, Heidi's here, so do you want to call Mike or you want me to call Mike Didio? What is it?
Yes, you.
You want me to call him? All right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, ladies.
Thanks so much, Joe. Thanks, Katie. Great job.
So,
What?
I think it's.
The time you gave me that big raise.
Bring in a resolution next month. We want to go on hourly.
Yeah, right. All right, is she
Hi, Chris. I'm on.
And,
Sheila.
Thanks. Thanks, guys. Careful.
Sheila has submitted her report, if there's any questions, but there is also a resolution. It's listed under county clerk, but it should be under clerk of the ledge. It's GO3. It's just amending the emergency policy. There was some wording in there that needed to be changed, that Dale Courier brought up. So that's in the resolution what the wording was. And if you want to, I was going to
Yes,
present that if you want me
definitely.
to.
I'll take a motion. Motion by Ms. McMahon Coleman. I need a second, please.
Second.
Ms. Nightingale, sorry, I'm trying to do two things at once and it clearly can't work. Any discussion on the moved resolution? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Unless you have anything else, Amanda, I think we'll carry on.
Sounds good.
Thank you, ma'am. All right, so next, I believe that we'll be moving on to county clerk. I believe Sue should be online somewhere.
I'm on.
Thanks, Sue. And do you have, Mr. McNeil, is that who else you have with you?
Yes, yep.
Okay, all right.
He's the
So
manager at our record center.
the floor is yours, Madam Clerk.
Okay, you see some of my updates. Does anybody, first of all, have questions in regard to any of those?
I don't see any.
I did have one.
Okay.
The passports, so this is Trish, hi.
Right.
I was just wondering, are we expecting, how long will those passport suspensions go on for, do you know? Or-
So we're gonna reassess in 4 weeks, which will be, I think, next week or the week after. Our office is now on hybrid. We're half there and half at home. And all the work is being done, but we can't do passports as long as that's going on. So we had some COVID in the office, and this is what we've done to make sure that doesn't continue. And the first thing we would discontinue or just put on hold would be passports, because it's the face-to-face for more than 15 minutes that you sit down with a family or people getting a passport, go through everything. It takes a little while. So sometimes we're in there, if there's a family, 45 minutes to an hour. So we had to put that, just suspend it. And we'll think about getting back to the office, everybody, in a week or two, and then we'll think about that, not suspending that, but we'll make an announcement about it.
Any other questions for Sue?
And just so you know, the post offices, a lot of post offices do it. I know the Auburn does, and a lot of other throughout the county. So they have to do it. They're required to do it. It's an option for us. So there's always that. And the people at the front door, security, are great to dispense that information and say, you can go right up the street to the post office. So that's helpful for families.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I'm not seeing any other questions.
Okay.
So Sue, before we get into the dream stuff, this GO2, I think we could probably dispose of that if you wanted to.
Yep. So that is, I don't see it there, but is that the?
Contracts with the Record Retention Center?
Yeah, that is just that, the Health and Human Services, they get reimbursed by the state, and everything's going, increasing in cost. So we raise the cost of that just so that Health and Human Services and our record center, we can be reimbursed at a higher rate.
Motion by, okay. So motion by Ms. Kerr, second. Shay, any discussion on government operations 2? No, we don't have anybody online. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried. All
Thank
right. Sue, just as a sort of segue, I'd like to say, and most people know this, that the Dreams Act, you did an outstanding presentation. I'm not exactly sure when it was. It was a while ago.
Right.
But I know we have a few new legislators. So if you could do just like a brief summary before, GO1, I'd appreciate it.
Sure. So I just want to say there is a little bit of an issue here because some of the legislators have heard about this for quite a while, 2 years. And then there's some new legislators, and I'm really happy that all the new legislators came through and did a tour. And so when I talk about the Record Center being full, you have a visual of that, a big one, and the conditions of the building as well. So I'm looking at, just to go through my frequently asked questions, unless you think it's another way. I think it's just.
Sounds good to me, Sue. And that'll sort of set us off.
Yeah. So DREAMS is an acronym for Digital Records Electronic Accessing Management System. Basically, that's a multi-phase, multi-year digital solution for all the records in the entire county. Why is the move to digital records management solution an urgent one? We know now it's not if, it's when. If we do nothing in a short amount of time, the record center will be completely filled. It's 97% filled now. That's why this started more than 2 years ago in the works. The only logical option is to alleviate the risk and to go digital. The current record center is in poor condition. It's not climate controlled. If there was a fire or any kind of water problem, it would be catastrophic loss of permanent and historic records. The building, it isn't like the courthouse and the old post office building where, you go in, you say it's beautiful and everything. If you've been there, and most of you have, it's over 60 years old, which, I'm older than that. So that's not that old. But for the building and nothing to be done with it, and it was an old jail, all of that stuff all together, asbestos, poor plumbing, electrical, no disaster recovery at all. It's deteriorating, and we all know what happened to the courthouse and the plumbing issue we dealt with just a year or two ago. So it costs $22,168 a year just to turn the lights on, and that was before everything went up. What are the risks if we do nothing? Of course, the continued accelerated building and records deterioration, short-term occupancy life approaching the 0 hour with no viable alternative. Catastrophic events could occur, such as fire or water damage, resulting in destruction of historic records. The benefits of it is moving to a 20th century records management model. It could easily be accessed by the public and county personnel. We'd be able to vacate an old deteriorating building. And then complementary county clerk departments could work in one office instead of in 3 different buildings, facilitating greater operational efficiencies. We can assure that our records will be safe. And the next thing is, why go cloud-based? I don't know if Tom Bunn is right there or not, but
yeah, I was hoping that he could speak. Yeah.
Tom is a big proponent of this project. I mean, that's the way to go. When neighboring county, Tompkins County, did it, they didn't have that at their disposal. Now they're thinking that's the way they need to go. The SaaS solution, it simplifies things. There's minimal investment. Internal IT labor is minimized, and that is what we're talking about, not putting a lot of pressure on the IT department. And the cost is fairly limited to software licensing and renewals. So having cloud-based system also would help, if people are working from home in offices, it's ideal. If it's easy to, if somebody wants a document, to send it, to receive it, to share it with different departments. So it also helps with the shared services portion of this project. Each town or village would simply require local computing, sufficient internet connectivity, and appropriate software licensing security. So that is what they did in Tompkins County. They do share there, and they ended up doing towns and villages, schools, the city, etc. And that all comes in time. Of course, first we'd have to do the county. And how would the solution benefit taxpayers and personnel? As I said, it is, I'm looking here, implementing a SaaS solution would make records available 24/7 to county personnel. It would greatly improve the county operational model. And one of the features of the envisioned solution would be a public portal, an online vehicle capable of delivering records 24/7. So how long would this take? We estimate 4 to 5 years after a lot of research. And we need to be careful not to extend that project timeline, because the lack of proper funding and commitment necessary to meet the goals would result in a reduced return on investment. And we have to do all the records. We have to make sure all the departments are involved, or the building cannot be vacated. What level of channels of funding will be required? We're looking at grants from the New York State Archives all throughout this, and we're also looking for the ARPA funds. There's limited, I think the highest New York State Archives grant is 150,000. So that's kind of a drop in the bucket, but we're going for those things. And the first thing we're going to do is use the town of Owasco. If we do get that New York State Archives grant, they'll be in our shared services, first of all. So that's it in a nutshell.
So, Mr. Chairman, if I could, I'd just like to ask Tom if there's anything he wanted to add before we go to full-blown questions. Is there anything that you wanted to add?
The only thing I'd like to say is currently, as it sits, our server infrastructure, kind of Sue alluded to, is not capable to, handle this project. We are at least 24 months out in terms of our rebuild to even look to accommodate a system of this magnitude. So I would definitely recommend the cloud solution. So.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, either Sue or Tom, who would actually physically put all these records in this project, this new project?
So we're going to go out for bid. It's a big project. So everything of the first part of all the phases is the county clerk has taken their own medicine. We're doing all the county clerk records. We have about 1/3 of the records in the record center. Ours will go first, but there's companies that work to do this just like they did in Tompkins County. We're following their model. So Laserfish, other things, we've been vetting companies that are qualified to do this. We've already been through the vetting process. It's all we need is the approval to go forward and get a hard, good estimate on this. And to give us, I know it's going to be in the ballpark of what we're saying already. So no, it's not going to be county staff sitting there scanning and indexing. It's impossible. They have done these huge digital projects other places. So you use companies that are rated by a national, I think it's called Garner. Michael McNeil is on. So I think he could actually add to this if I can let him talk for a minute.
Sure, Sue. To pick up where Sue left off, yes, in the research that we've done over the last couple of years, we used, Gartner Group is has been a well-known resource for doing research of this matter. In the ECM or electronic content management silo, we've looked at numerous vendors, but the solution that Sue is referring to is that the model is for B to engage, vet and engage formally, get binding bids, and select a vendor to work with. And then these vendors have subcontractors that they work with. Now, these subcontractors kind of fill the gap where, somebody was asking, would we our internal staff do that. As Sue alluded to, we just don't have the capacity. We don't have the resources available to do a project of this magnitude. So what you do is you engage with some of these contractors that are built to do something like this. They have the resources, they have the bandwidth to be able to do it in a relatively short period of time, which 4 or 5 years is a relatively short period of time for something of this magnitude. And that is where the big cost would be for the implementation portion of the project, especially for the core record center as it is, which has over 12,000 cubic square feet of content. Once you get over the bell curve of that in 4 or 5 years, doing subsequent municipalities that may have smaller amounts may be a little bit easier to address. But the ongoing operations, once this is fully implemented, will be relatively less expensive. And but the initial cost, we're estimating right now is around $4 million for the first few years to get this up to speed, is where the real capital investment falls.
Mr. Chairman, you had a question?
Yeah, I think that answers that. The vendor that would be doing this, that is included in the cost of the 4 million, right?
That is correct, yes. Again, it is an estimate because we don't have this sanctioned by our legislature. When we have spoken and engaged different vendors for estimates, that's all they can give us. A binding estimate, something working through IT and procurement, would be able to give us a more a sharper cost.
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, ma'am.
I have 2 questions. One is ongoing costs, and will revenue for selling the access to the public kind of offset that? And then my second question has to do with the ARPA funds. Am I hearing this correctly? It's about a $3.8 million ARPA ask?
It's
more about 4. 4.
Yes, it was 4. Because we have the estimated costs. If you look at, I think everybody, I know I did. I either gave you an electronic copy or a hard copy, whatever you desire. And you'll see the Dreams budget overall. If you look in there, and you'll see year 1, 2, 3, and 4. So the continued costs, or the costs after you get through, you do have to pay for licenses for things like that. So there will be some cost to that. And Michael, do you want to speak about anything else?
Well, what Sue is true was Sue's right in saying that the initial implementation is basically uploading all of the traditional records up to a digital format in the cloud solution. After that, there is ongoing licensing costs. Again, until we are able to formally engage with a vendor or vendors and get a selected vendor, we don't know exactly what those costs are going to be. We can only estimate. In the package that Sue sent out, whether it was digital or paper, there is a work tab or a sheet that alludes to year 5+, and that's intended to be the ongoing operations once the implementation is completed. I off the top of my head, I think it was in the 40 to 60 annual rate. But again, that is subject to doing a due diligence analysis, whatever the selected vendor is, and then we would be able to get a firmer cost. But it is that is a ballpark. Now, if I may, Sue, also to the incoming revenue, one of the features that these systems facilitate is a public portal. Now, right now, we don't really make a whole lot of money, I don't think, Sue, as far as the general public coming in and using our services to gain records and charging for it. But this platform would provide a viable opportunity to facilitate that. What that would be, I don't know. But the technology is there. Other counties are using it as a way to generate revenue.
Yeah, so the county clerks by law can charge 65 cents a page or whatever, but we do make money on records that are available online. And the more we put online, the more money we make every year. So that will happen. But, I think eventually within 10 years, I think most of this I don't think people are going to be charged for it. I've just got to say it. I think sooner or later, this will be available. There are some counties already doing that, but most of the counties still charge. We'll see how that sharing information goes, but some of it will probably be free. Let's face it.
Mr. Chair.
Hi, Sue, Michael. Thank you for your presentation. I have two areas that concern me. I'm in support of the project. It's something we need to do. A couple of weak areas I see is who establishes or who follows the progressive goals. It's a monumental project.
Yes.
So along the way, you have to verify that you're taking the steps necessary, verifying what you have done. My second concern.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I thought I got the two out of the way.
Can I answer that first?
Yeah.
Just because it's just so right now we have 4 people working on the Dreams team. And that is Michael and myself. And then there's Dawn Wolf, who's my first deputy. And then there is John Bohall in my office. I believe with a project like this, we're going to have a legislator, and we're going to have some representation and to meet and to make sure. But technically, to keep technically up on it, Michael has the IT know-how, and I have the other know-how. And I think we can start it out like that, but I do think we need the Records Advisory Board involved in this, and there is representation with a legislator. Certainly there's an IT, it's Tom Bunn is on there. You saw that those appointments tonight. And if there's somebody that needs to be there from the Finance Committee, that would also be helpful.
That's great. I mean, once you get into the heart of this project, I mean, you'll need all hands on deck.
Yes.
So that's great. My second question is another area of potential is accuracy. I mean, who verifies the accuracy of the records that are going in there? Because, public records should be, if at all possible, very accurate.
So if you know anything about the county clerk's office, things are checked, things are done and checked. Everything gets a check, at least one check on it. And that is how these companies work. They have been doing this for permanent records for such a long time. They are checked. That's part of their process. They have to be checked. So when we have sent books out, okay, to be done, deed books, let's say, we could send them out to get done and digitized. We have, we always put more and more online, and we always preserve books. That is a process that's they're always checked when they do that. So this is not new to any of those companies that have been doing this for a very long time.
Sue, may I also check something too?
Yes.
You're talking about the kind of melding the two questions the gentleman had there. You're talking about quality control, and whenever you're doing a project any project of like this, you're going to have a quality control step involved with it. Now, I've had a few conversations with Tom since he started. I know he has a similar background to what I have, and he has a background in project management, as do I. I'm anticipating that it will obviously be a collaborative effort. Any project that is implemented into an environment such as ours that involves IT has to be done in collaborative effort with IT. And I envision that we would be following Project Management Institute best practices. And as you work through a proof of concept, piloting, and then eventual implementation, you're going to have these type of quality control steps to close the loop and verify that the work that has been done has been accurate and acceptable before you move on.
Okay, thank you very much. You do understand, I'm not questioning your integrity. I'm just.
Absolutely not.
I want to
Absolutely
support this project, so.
That is, no.
I understand it.
All questions.
And I'm just trying to do my part to help Sue and help the project out as far as trying to explain the things, because again, my experience with the Cayuga County government has not been as extensive as other people have. But I from what I've seen, a lot of these type of projects have not been brought forward. And so therefore I just want to make sure that I'm explaining it as thoroughly as possible to answer any questions that people might have.
And
thank you very much.
My big thing has been all along, I cannot see, this has to be done. It's going to be done sooner or later. It has to be done. It should be done sooner than later. But if you don't use those ARPA funds, if we don't use that, we are going to have the taxpayers pay for this project. I don't care what you say, it's going to have to be done. So that is why I think it's so important to do. You think, I mean, this is a big project. I'm up for it, and I think our team is up for it. But I'm looking at the taxpayers. If the taxpayers had to pay for this, that would be a lot of money, a lot of money. And this is, you know, this isn't a sexy project like a new park or whatever. This is something that needs to be done. It's infrastructure. That's what this is.
So having said that, I think I'd like to add. So I'd also like to add that I think that with this, it's possible, not guaranteed, but possible that we would create some space for potential movement, because I know we're constrained for space. Would that be fair to say, Sue?
You're saying that building will be vacated.
Exactly.
And I will need a question I get a lot from people. You know, we put that article in the paper. I always get, hey, are you going to destroy those deeds from 1797? And no, we will need a room in probably the courthouse would be the best place to have it. A room where we do store some intrinsic records. Those are, you know, historic records that, yes, will they be digitized? They will, but we don't want to destroy those books. And we'll have to make a decision of what we're going to save and what we're not going to save.
Okay, any further questions for yet?
Hi, Sue, this is Trish.
Hi, Trish.
I appreciate you bringing this forward. I know this has been a project that you guys have been working on for a long time. And I am definitely a fan of digitizing records and making them accessible to the public through the internet. My concern at this point with this is that $4 million of ARPA funding is a significant amount of the money that we have to work with. And we haven't had a comprehensive discussion yet about any of the projects, other than a few here and there. And I think that for me, and like you said, this isn't necessarily a sexy project, but it's an important one. But it's also one that I think for me, I need to look at it within the comprehensive framework of all of the projects that we're going to be looking at to make decisions about. It's not that I don't support the project. It's just that we're going to have a lot of decisions to make. And I think right now it's premature for me to vote on this. But having said that, I do have some questions for you.
Sure.
And I was wondering about the phasing of the projects will we be partnering, at one point, the town of Owasco was going to be included as like an initial partner on this. Is that still the plan for like the phase one of the project?
So we are going to apply for a New York State Archives grant, and that is a shared services grant, because if you don't go for shared services, you can't get $150,000. We have the ability to go up as high as $150,000. So what that would look like it is, we would start with the county clerk records and do them, and we'd also start with the small amount of records that the town of Owasco has. Now, to them, it's not a small amount, but compared to our records, it is. So they are going to be included. We're going to apply for that grant no matter what. Okay. But I just want to remind you, as you talk about this project, you can't do this project halfway. So let's say you say, well, maybe we can give them $2 million. Not going to work. I won't even do it. It's going to be all or nothing. I'm going to tell you right now, that's the way it goes. We're either going to go digital or we're not going to go. And then you're going to have to put up with it in 2 or 3 years at the very most. The record center will be full and you'll have the taxpayers pay for it.
Okay, thank you. And then my next question is, with the town being involved in phase 1, has there been any discussion with them about contributing ARPA dollars to the project?
They're not part of ARPA. They're part of the New York State Archives grant, shared services grant.
Right,
So-
but you're asking for ARPA funding from us to close a gap in the project, and they're part of the project. So I was just wondering if they were going to be contributing ARPA dollars.
Well, we're not really doing that. What we're doing is saying to the New York State Archives archives people, this New York State shared grant is a part of a big project we are doing by digiting our county. So when they judge grants, they are looking to see, is this a small part of a bigger project? And are you going to make a big, huge difference? Okay. So that is what we're saying. If we get the approval to get ARPA funds and the New York State Archives grant people know that, then they're going to see, okay, this is going to be part of that. And they are going to continue to do this. If they see we're going to work with the town of Owasco, the next time we apply for a New York State Archives grant, we might be able to do a different town or the city or whatever, so that's what that is. It's leverage, and it's saying, okay, the county is in on this. That's what that is. So will the town of Owasco have to put money towards it? Yeah, they will. Won't be free for them. I don't know if it'll be ARPA money or not, but they know that they're going to have to put some money in it. We said both the county and the town will have to put some money into it.
Yeah, that was my question in terms of the total project cost, if it is 4 million, what portion of that are we hoping to fund through grants versus?
It's only 100.
The county.
The most we get is $150,000 a year. That's.
And then is there a potential to phase the project and apply more than one year to offset the cost of those phases versus submitting one project and getting one grant? Could it be broken out and funds secured in phases?
So are you asking that phase 1 says, let's say $1 million or $150,000 will go towards that? Because it basically is not going to look like that. We're going to get the vendor to give us that amount. We're going to keep going and going. The $150,000 is going to help us do shared services and part of ours. I don't know. Michael, do you see it's going to play a significant part in maybe chipping off some of that money in our estimates? I don't think so, but
Sue, I would agree with you on that. The ARPA funds are intended to take care of the core of the project, which is the scope of the actual physical record center content right now. This, as Sue alluded to, the shared services grant has to have a neighboring municipality be part of that effort, and you have to report that. So as you asked, the intent is to have Owasco Town be part of phase one in the first year. The money that we would receive, whether it's 150 capped, might be less, depends on a lot of variables. That would help fund their portion of it. If Owasco does contribute, okay, that's great, that's fine. But any subsequent years, every year you can apply for the grant, and you can start chipping away different towns after that. Can some of those funds be put towards the core part of the project? I believe they can, but the intent is to assist a shared services entity primarily.
So I'm sorry for all the questions, but is the $4 million project, does that include any other towns, or is that just Owasco and the county?
That is just the 4 million is intended to address the core of Cayuga County, the record center as it is. The shared services grant that we would be applying for would be able to assist Owasco Town as, if you will, a bolt-on.
Right.
An additional thing. And, then maybe you might do Sterling or Moravia or so forth in subsequent years, so forth.
Have you guys looked at shared services countywide to fund this type of a project, like the actual shared services grant through the state?
What is?
I don't know what that is.
What is that?
We do.
The New York State Archives.
Coming or.
You mind if I say?
Yeah.
Trish is referring to shared services that municipalities do amongst one another. They're specifically talking about the archives group, which is a whole separate organization that focuses on archiving.
Yeah, no, I know, but the state archives I'm familiar with, I've done grants through them. But the municipal shared services project, this is a different grant pool of funding that if you partner with a neighboring municipality, and there's cost savings in doing it for the first year, you get funded back those cost savings. I didn't know if there was any opportunity to get funds through there or cost savings to do countywide versus just starting with the town to be able to offset the costs.
I think that sounds good. I got to tell you, this is going to take all of our energy. Okay. It's going to be big. And I don't know if I could take on another shared. I think we'd have to bring somebody else in to facilitate that. I know Lynn works with that. I know Lynn Marinelli works with that, and I'm not sure how she feels about it. She's mentioned putting it down, as something maybe somebody be interested in, but.
All right, so is there?
I don't want to bite off more than I could chew. I've got to just be honest about
that shared services thing, like we're doing one with a neighboring municipality, and we put it all into play. We had to submit it, but we moved forward with the shared services. The question is whether the state's going to reimburse it or not.
Right.
They agree if it's shared services.
Yeah, there's parameters you have to work with.
And we're working with the county on through the county program.
It could be a possibility, but I think somebody would have to step up and do that part of it. This is a lot already. And I've got everything else to do.
So is it before? So I guess, is there any further questions regarding this for Sue, Tom, Michael? Any other questions? All right.
For the committee.
Bless you.
Suggestion of the 4 million versus the original ask way back last year was a 1.5 million. And I understand that that the resolution has this ask in phases, but in terms of ARPA funding, you know, I don't know what on the balance, how anybody feels about the amount of money we use from ARPA.
Personally, I think we should fund it completely. I think that we have sufficient amount of funding. I think that the program is necessary and ultimately will be prescribed by the state. So as the clerk said, I think that I want to avoid the possibility of being in a place where it's mandated and we do not have sufficient funds.
Yeah.
So if it were, I guess in response to me, I would move it. I'd move it, and if I could have a second, if that's the flavor, go ahead.
So so that's my question for the group, right? Because you mentioned, I want to see something holistically before. I personally do feel the same because I do feel like it will be mandated. I do feel as though we need coverage, right? God forbid we have a fire or water damage or something. That building, I mean, it's everything. And it's a huge undertaking, but it's something worth doing. And it's something, like you said, we don't eventually have to put in the backs of our taxpayers. But we will be probably forced to at some point.
Absolutely.
So,
yes, sir.
Just to piggyback on what both of those said, I would support, biting the bullet and paying the whole 4 million right up front. That's where my vote would be.
So dovetailing off that, I'll make it, because I support this project 100%. I'll make it as a motion and I would entertain a second at this point.
No, I can't.
he can't.
Sorry.
Yeah, nice try.
Mr. Petcher did. So, all right, so we have a motion and a second, and yes. Any further discussion? Please, please do, because we gotta.
Can I just say one more thing?
Sure, sir.
I want to make it clear that, this will change the way we do business, not for just one department, not even for 10 departments, but all of them. It's going to be an educational lesson. But, again, if you can't build a half a building or you can't build a half of anything. And if you don't do it all the way, it's like saying you went from typewriters and then you went to a computer, but only half the people were going to get it. It doesn't make sense. And I wish we didn't have to do this, but I know we do. And that I think it's probably one of the best things we'll do, and look back and say, we're glad we did it then.
Yes, ma'am.
You had me at, it's not an option, we have to do it. But then I kind of dropped back when I got the all or nothing sense. And I do, you did a great job of showing me around and showing me the importance of it when I got to spend time with you and your team.
Yep.
And I was very impressed, and I saw the veracity of this project, and I'm very impressed in all that you've done in putting this all together, so thank you. But I'm still concerned because we are entertaining ARPA funds requests, and this is such a large bite of it, making a commitment to $4 million of that tonight feels like I'm not doing the right thing.
Mm-hmm. Well, I will say that if any of the other projects, and I don't know them all, if you could look at how it would change the way we do business and help every single department, and even collaborate, have different departments together now, because it would be that easy to share and dispense of, documents. I don't know if you could compare it with any other thing, except for maybe a water project, which is very important. Everybody needs clean water, so I don't know what's out there for your ask, and you all have to make these decisions. I'm sure they're hard, and I really appreciate you considering it.
So Lydia, I guess what I would say is that my thought process was, I did sort of like a cost benefit analysis. And yeah, because it is a huge chunk of the ARPA funds, but given, as you said, that, you know, we're ultimately going to be saddled with it, we have a sufficient amount of money to pay for it at this point. I terrible at math, so I don't know what 2 million, the percentage is of 14, but somebody can do that.
This is 4 million.
4 million.
Four, okay, so.
Almost a
30,
third. Almost a third.
Okay, so fair enough, but it does leave sufficient, and I also do not want to your point as well, it's a legitimate point, but I also don't want to deliberate, contemplate until nothing's done. So I think we need to expedite this. So your point, both of you, your point is well taken, but I think when I look at it, I think it's best to proceed now and avoid any issues because we're ultimately going to be set with it. Having said that, Trish, you had more.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a final comment about it because I don't want you to think I don't support what you're doing, Sue. I think it's a really ambitious, great project to take on. But I've said all along that I feel like we have to maximize these ARPA dollars. I feel like there's potential other funding sources that should be considered with this. I think we should be looking at shared services and the feasibility of that. You know, if we have to bring in out extra people to make that happen, if it's if there's other options, I feel like we should be looking at that first. So I'm just I'm not gonna support this tonight, but I don't want you to feel like I don't support the project because I definitely do. I just think it's premature to vote on this right now.
I don't want to leave any stone unturned, and I am willing to sit down with Lynn Marinelli and talk about those shared services because if there's a possibility of bringing somebody on and using those funds, I don't know what the amounts are, and getting them, I mean, I have heard too that they're not, you know, you don't get the money right away or anything, but the county could run it, I guess, or whatever. But I'll sit down with Lynn, learn something new. Works for me.
I want to move this forward as quickly as possible. I truly do, because I value this program and I'm all about digital. I always have been. But you have seen all of the ARPA requests come into our emails. Max put together a huge file for each of us with the ones that we have already. And I know our chairman has been really pummeled with requests and has been working hard to try to corral all of this.
But again, I'm gonna say, there's no point in doing this unless we do it all. It's that simple. So you either can say, and I'm not holding anybody hostage, I'm saying, if you don't go digital for everybody, you're not saving money, you're spending money, it's like throwing money out the window. We can actually save money in the end if you do the whole thing, but we're not going halfway. It doesn't even make sense to do that.
You guys are killing me. I gotta be on the freaking floor. Oh, absolutely. Yes.
I just wanted to say one more thing is one of the projects we need to think about is broadband. There's people in this county that can't even get on the internet to access digital files.
You are right.
We don't have clear cost estimates on that. Yep. It could be more than $4 million. And so that's just where I'm coming from right now is that, but I do agree, you know, that it's important, so.
Council, I'm gonna get Mr. Petcher first, okay?
Well, basically, if we dribble away the money to a little bit here, a little bit there, it's not going to amount to anything. Let's put it into the projects that are going to do a long-term good, and this is one of them, and let's do it and get it over with.
Counselor?
Oh, just as a clarification, because I hear you debating over an issue that it's already covered in the resolution. It does direct the county clerk to seek other and additional funding.
What I don't understand, Counselor, is that why can't additional revenue sources be allocated as we move forward? It can only reduce the amount that we draw off of the ARPA funds. Fair?
True. I mean, you will have to set aside the 4 million.
Right, exactly.
But if
But
you don't
then,
need them, you don't.
if you need them, they're there. If not, we can reduce that as we move forward. I'm just so you guys know what my thought process is. And also, you should live in here. There's like, I just think that most people have prioritized their projects and we kind of have a mindset. And I'm just openly saying that this is a priority for me. I have not heard, I'm trying to do, this is equitable. Anybody have anything to say before I call the question, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, just so everybody knows, Max should have all these done hopefully this next week, maybe the end of this week. I'm going to try to get a special meeting for the legislature to sit down with all those books that he's printing up. That way you'll have a lot better knowledge of what's being asked and how much is being asked. So certainly if you want to change it today, that I'm hoping to have that meeting before the full ledge.
So.
For the 25th.
Okay, I just didn't know if you guys, I wanted to give you the opportunity to, fair enough. Call the question. All in favor? Aye.
I'd like to move this forward for further discussion.
Thank you.
I'd like to be on record as an.
Absolutely. Let me spit it out.
Okay. I thought you were just gonna come.
No, any opposed? There you go. So 3-4. All right, and that we're on record. Everybody's good, that they got to articulate their vote.
Who are the 3 no's? Just want to double check.
Amanda.
Lydia.
Tricia.
Heidi.
Thank you.
All right,
Wait, Heidi's not on the committee.
Not on government ops?
I think she is, isn't she?
Oh, wait, I'm sorry. I wrote it down. I'm so sorry.
Don't be stealing my members.
No chocolates for you.
Thanks, Amanda.
My apologies. Getting late.
It's a late day for Amanda.
All right, any questions before they move on, before we move on? All right, thank you. So next, I think we got Chris Palermo. He said no updates.
He's on.
He's on, but I think he said no updates. So
Can you hear me,
unless
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
He's talking.
Hi.
Hey,
if I could provide an update, I'd appreciate it.
Absolutely.
So one thing we've been working on, we had a very preliminary meeting with Lynn Marinelli and Amanda Morgan. We're talking about the implementation of our legal practice management software, which we took on last year, expanding that to the resolution approval process. The resolutions that you guys all see before you, they get approved by legal, HR, the budget, treasurer. Everybody has their own little parts that they look to verify, and we're going to digitize that. So software's already been purchased. It's already there. We're just looking to expand it and bring on, I guess some new procedures. So it's kind of exciting, and we're working on that. So there you have it.
Thank you, sir. Man, you got your fingers in everything, don't you? Any questions for the county attorney?
He's got his finger in your phone.
Thanks, Chris.
Is it snow?
All right, I don't hear any. All right, thanks, Chris. Tom, we've basically, you're next.
We'll keep it very brief.
Okay.
But no, you have my update. I just had 2 quick things to elaborate on. One would be our staffing and the senior computer systems technician position. We did get several applicants that did apply in the last week and a half. So I've met with our internal team to kind of whittle it down to 3 highly qualified candidates. We're going to be interviewing them on this Friday here, and I hope to have a final decision next week. But all 3 of these folks are very highly qualified, local, and will provide an instant positive impact to the department. So we're very excited to move forward with that.
All right. Any questions for Tom?
Great.
Got one more.
No, he's not done.
Just one more, just one more.
Sorry.
Nope, just the active.
I'm not trying to rush it at all.
No, just the active project here in Chambers. So we did pretty much finish phase one of the project. We just have two outstanding things. We're going to be putting a touch screen display here to provide some extra flexibility. You'll be able to annotate over the screens and do some other things when you present. So it'll be nice. And just we're missing a cable for the second camera to get the chairman when we go live with our ledge meeting. So.
Oh, he's got his own. He's got his own camera. Yes, sir.
So just, that'll be wrapping up phase one. Phase two, I did put an application in for ARPA funding to kind of assist with that. Basically, what that would be reinforce the sound in the internal space here. So when we do a full ledge, we have folks, visitors from the outside come in, we can, everyone can be heard clearly. And also it would expand to bring us ADA compliance in the space so that we would provide, Bluetooth connectivity, hearing aids, and provide a headset for folks that aren't hearing and picturing.
Well done.
Good job, Tom.
All right, so now we can go to questions. I think Mr. Basile and then.
Because
you're good.
Go ahead, Aileen.
Nope, I didn't have one. No,
Oh,
sorry.
I was just thinking at some point I'm gonna have to get up and speak on something, and I wanna know when there's gonna be a clicker to go through the screens and a laser pointer.
Oh, the power of the point. You cannot do it. People let everybody else change it. I'm like, I can't operate this. I need to operate this with a laser. Any other questions? I just want to say thank you again.
Awesome.
You're doing really great job. You came in and you're making a difference already. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right. And then I think that just leaves, if I'm correct, Mr. Swab. Is he on? I can't.
I
Oh, there
am
it
on.
is.
I turn my camera on too, so you can see me.
Yeah.
So real
Yes,
quick,
sir.
I'm just hit over 30 days in the position. I spent a lot of that time, 2 weeks going through veteran service officer training with New York State to get accredited to do claims and learn more about benefits for veterans in New York State and obviously the VA and that sort of thing. We're continuing to provide transportation to veterans to the Syracuse VA and continue to do compensation claims by appointment. So I have a meeting with the Veteran Service Advisory Board next week. And after that, probably see a few more things come out, more action, trying to, easing into this. So we'll see how things play out here in the next month. That's all I have.
Thank you. Any questions?
Yeah, I just want to welcome you aboard, Kev, for our meeting, our Veterans Committee meeting. Thank you very much. And I've known you a long time and you're going to be a great, great asset for us. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Any other questions? Hearing none. Thank you, sir. I just wanted to say before we go, I elected not to proceed and have the conversation tonight for the sake of attention spans. But next month, I would like to entertain the form of government, charter, stuff like that. Former Chairwoman McNabb Coleman and now Chairman Gould are operating have had and are now operating $162 million corporation. This is important. What is essentially a $162 million corporation. It's important that we address that, but tonight I thought it would be way too much. So coming, stay tuned. March should be just as exciting. If there's not any other questions, let's get that motion.